Aha, and we're live. Testing, testing, one, two, three. Testing, testing, one, two, three. There we go. We've got green for the sound machine. It's 21:59. Hi, folks. I'm Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, also known as the Doghouse. And tonight we're going to be getting on with our God Emperor of Dune book club, chapter 11, a crack chapter, something to get our teeth into. And I'm always getting organized. We're just going to wait for 10 o'clock as usual, just to say hello to everybody, but we're just, as I said, just checking everything. So if anybody's there in the meantime, say hello. And yeah, there we go. Let me see. Not too disorganized tonight, actually. We're getting better. There's 10 o'clock. So I'll say hello, everyone. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm Doc Sloan, also known as Russ, and welcome to the show. We're going to have a run through chapter 11 tonight of our God Emperor of Dune book club. And there's Sean Whelan saying, good evening, Doc. Bojack Harkness, hello all. Hi, Bojack. Hi, Sean. And there's Babs Bilo saying, evening, Doc. You're coming through fine. Thank you very much. Got a bit of housekeeping to do with tonight. But first of all, to Bojack there, thank you so much. You know why. And apologies, basically, to everybody, because simply put, I've been making a few mistakes lately. In a couple of chapters, I've managed to miss out a couple of things. It's just from tiredness and a bit of stress having to deal with my psychopathic neighbours, which is all, we're on top of everything there now. And I'm hoping tonight is going to be much, much better. But Bojack's been keeping an eye on the text, and a big, big thank you to that, Bojack. I think I called you Bojack Horseman the other week, Bojack Harkness. So much appreciated for keeping a wee eye on things and on me. And I've adjusted my notes accordingly. And I was just a quick message off to Bojack before we started. Actually, the last mistake there wasn't me. That was a difference in the text. So they're not all me, thank goodness. But Bojack, much, much appreciated. Really, thank you very much. The good thing is, folks, by the way, if I do make wee mistakes and put them, people put comments up, that's a whole part of this. And it allows to have these fixes attached to the videos themselves. And as I said, I adjust the notebooks if I do make any wee mistakes or if we notice any difference between the texts. So I just got a big thanks to Bojack for that. Really much appreciated. And my apologies, just my head's not been in the right place lately. But I've got my mojo back. And to tell you how much my mojo is back, I have strung my classical guitar finally, which I haven't done in 4 years. I haven't done it since my dad died, because I used to play guitar for him on that and he'd make requests, So I've kind of got my head out of my backside, if you like, and I really do appreciate that. Was there something else, actually? Let me see. Oh, yes, got a wee note from Xvid there. Just also prior to this, and this is something I'm going to get done, I hope, over Easter, was he was just letting me know that I've put a wee link to it there. We've actually got Frank reading part of this chapter and an audio file there with Willis E. McNelly, which is interesting. I will point out, I suppose, Xvid was pointing out a bit where Frank's having a good bit of a giggle at something in this, and we'll point it out when we get there. But the link is on this episode if anybody wants to check it. Because I do have a bit of free time, I've only got one student over the next 2 weeks because of the Easter holidays. I've got time to do stuff, so I'm going to hit all of those audio files, and I've got a transcript for some stuff with Willis E. McNelly as well, and see what sort of notes I can get out of it for us. Because a lot of it, as Xvid was pointing out, as I call him, is actually relevant to what we're reading at the minute. So hopefully these next couple of weeks will give me a wee bit of time to get that done. And just want a couple of other things. I've actually activated a Spanish Dream on the channel, not for any profit or anything, but it's a fan thing. It's something that's been shut down by the Herbert Estate if anybody wants to check it out. And we also have King Solomon and the Worm as a wee audiobook taken from the Babylonian Talmud, and that version that we have up is from Jewish Fairy Stories, which is a book published about 100 years ago, just over 100 years ago. And I think it's a great wee story, by the way. It was Chaya that introduced me to this book. And as I'm sure you know, I love fairy tales and myths and all that kind of stuff. But it's of course about a very interesting worm and King Solomon. Um, and I'm hoping to bring you a few more wormy, if you like, stories. We know it's not sci-fi, but we've got a couple of audiobooks planned, and it's great to be actually getting them back. As I said, we're back on the saddle, if you like, back on the horse, and we've got some Homerica coming your way soon, and then I'm going to get some sci-fi audiobooks done because we enjoy them, and we've got some kind of odd and interesting ones to introduce you to. So I'll just quickly, that's the housekeeping, I suppose, just quickly catch up with the comments there. Babs is saying, howdy Sean, howdy Bojack, and there's Julian saying, hi all, hi Doc, how you doing Julian? Good to see you. Babs is saying, howdy Julian, and Bojack is saying, it's my pleasure, thank you. Oh, you're most welcome, Bojack. Bojack saying, between us all, it's the most comprehensive reading of Dune. Julian saying, hi Babs, good to chat with you all. And there's Carlos Crescelia saying, hey Doc, evening gentlefolk of the SFBC. Excellent, thank you very much. Carlos, how you doing? And Bojack is absolutely quite correct. As I've pointed out many times, so many of you bring so much to this. You know, your comments, your questions, your insights. It's not just my work. I kind of do the framework, if you like, the conversation. Everybody's got a different way of looking at a book. Between us, we seem to be catching all the mistakes. Though I'm very pleased to say that most of the ones that we've hit so far have been mine. I've just been tired and accidentally left out a sentence or something. The reason why is I can't read from this book doing this. It's the text is too small. And so pretty much we write everything out by hand. It's my nice large handwriting, and it's a really good way of actually finding out the mistakes. What we're essentially doing is what you would call a close study of all 6 of Frank Herbert's Dune novels, and we've thrown in his one short story as well. And it's an old-fashioned approach to literary analysis, but it's when I was at school, I had three different English teachers, all of whom had a different style, if you like. But we had one called what was her name? Arlene Nelson, I think, and she was very much. She did taught us how to do close study particularly with Shakespeare. You know, and it pays off actually, I think. And the other thing is as well, as I said, we update our notes. We fill in these books as we go. I don't know if you can see them all, but there's a whole bunch of them there. Oh, look what I found, by the way. I thought I'd stick that there. I thought this book was destroyed, but just very quickly. I was chatting about this last week. This is the only biography of an actor that I own, and I thought it was long gone, but I found it in the garage. This is the one I was telling you about, Michael York, Traveling Player. And it's a great book for a very interesting man, you know, full of all sorts of photos and stuff like that in it. But just in relation to the Four Musketeers, we were having a wee natter about D'Artagnan, and somebody, of course, was talking about the last remake of Beau Geste. So it's a good book, a good chunky book. But if anybody's into that kind of thing, God, I've had this years. I highly recommend it. He's a fascinating actor. You know, there you go. So it was just interesting that I found that. Just very quickly, in terms of sci-fi, before we get going, I'm tearing through Fall of Hyperion. I'm absolutely adoring this. I'm just about halfway, I think, heading there. These are big books. Oh, I'm not quite halfway, but absolutely adoring this. Read it a couple of times a long time ago. And I'm really enjoying it. So if anybody wants a wee recommendation on the side, Dan Simmons' Hyperion Cantos are brilliant, you know. So there we go. Thank you all very much for joining us. It's horrible weather here at the minute. It's just been lashing down, very cold, and I think we're about to get hit by a big storm. We're also kind of suffering the effects of Trump at the minute. Looks like Northern Ireland's running out of petrol. We'll have to start getting out the old donkeys and carts, I think, you know. But there we go. We've got a great chapter for you tonight, folks. I've called this one The State of the Empire. And it's a report by 5 Reverend Mothers of the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood. It kind of also reminds me of David Lynch's Dune, just, you know, that report within the guild at the beginning. This is the kind of thing that goes on in this Dune universe. So within this chapter, we're going to get a bit of a state of the Empire after this huge leap in time, and we're going to have a chat about the major players and I suppose the politicking of the Bene Gesserit, and we're going to find out some pretty uncomfortable things about the God Emperor, who's meant to be our hero as usual. And it's got me thinking about Frank messing around with the heroic cycle, if you like, and certain ideas that you'll get from things like Campbell's The Monomyth and all of this. But of course, that our hero Leto from the previous book, Leto II, didn't really kill the monster, if you like. Typically, he became it. And we have to really do consider, I think, just from my own point of view, and I hope you agree with this, that we need to consider who is heroic within this novel, and who's our villain. How do we look at the villains? How do we look at the heroes, if you like? And as always, the little people, and how things affect them. Yeah, but we've got lots and lots of interesting stuff here tonight. There's Cynthia saying, hi, Doc. Hi, all. How you doing, Cynthia? Thank you very much for joining us. Hope you're keeping well. So, yeah, it's great to have you all here, folks. I'm just going to move that mouse out the road. And we've got all sorts of interesting things to talk about. A little bit of etymology today, and some interesting things. I suppose something else I just got thinking about a wee bit was... goodness, I was thinking about the Melian dialogue from Thucydides. I'll have a wee chat with you about it, just in terms of political realism, that kind of thing. When we get to it, I suppose, I've made a wee note somewhere down on here. There's Carlos saying, hi, Cynthia. Yes, it's good to have you all here, folks. Lovely to have you here. So let's get cracking with our epigraph. We at the minute, I suppose we're getting little epigraphs and then little additions, if you like, within that. But again, I'm starting to look at the God Emperor's stolen journals and the secret journals, this kind of thing, as an apologia by the God Emperor. Something we can have a wee natter about at some point. But here we go. Here's our epigraph. Your Lord knows very well what is in your heart. Your soul suffices this day as a reckoner against you. I need no witnesses. You do not listen to your soul, but listen instead to your anger and your rage. This is Lord Leto to a penitent from the oral history. Do something saying, hey, Carlos there. Now, a penitent, I suppose, from the idea of penitentiaries. Probably a lot of you would consider a penitentiary a prison, but I think their origins are actually within, God, I did this years ago, let me see. Penitentiaries were set up during the Roman persecutions of the Christians in the Roman Empire. And it was for people who denied their faith. It was a means of them being brought back into the faith, if you like. It's from the Latin verb peniteo, which is to cause to regret or repent, or to be sorry. I've just made a wee note here, see Christian penitentiary. Now, here's our little introduction to this report. And it says the following assessment of the state of the late empire in the year 3508 of the reign of the Lord Leto is taken from the Welbeck abridgment. The original is in the Chapter House archives of the Bene Gesserit order. A comparison reveals that the deletions do not subtract from the essential accuracy of this account. So what we're about to read is from this Welbeck abridgment. It's a text we've heard about before. And it's interesting that it's called the Welbeck abridgment because it's obviously an abridged version, but an abridged version of what, if you like? The Welbeck unabridged, I suppose. I recently got I think it was a wee while back, I got a copy of Mallory's Mort d'Arthur and found out, ordered it and found out that it was abridged, or had some abridgments, and I was not happy because I preferred the whole thing. Thank you very much. I think we did a wee bit of work on Welbeck. Welbeck's in a village in Nottinghamshire. There's also a Welbeck in Ontario, Canada, but it's also a Ghanaian name, someone from Ghana. So what we get is that the original of this book, not the abridged version that we're talking about, this is what this is from, is in the archives of the Bene Gesserit order. Deletions, subtractions, redactions, who knows at this point. But this is what we're getting is a Bene Gesserit report. This is the text that it's taken from. We'll find out at the end of this that this report is by 5 Reverend Mothers. Though there is also an editor involved, and we don't know who that is. So here we go. In the name of our sacred order and its unbroken sisterhood, this accounting has been judged reliable and worthy of entry into the chronicles of the chapter house. Now, here we go. Sisters Chinoa and Taosuoko have returned safely from Arrakis to report confirmation of the long suspected execution of the 9 historians who disappeared into his citadel in the year 2116 of Lord Leto's reign. The sisters report that the 9 were rendered unconscious, then burned on pyres of their published works. This conforms exactly with the stories which spread across the empire at the time. The accounts of that time were judged to have originated with Lord Leto himself. So very, very quickly, by the way, we put a wee link up, as we were saying there, to Frank reading this, and at the point where he does read this bit, about the 9 who were rendered unconscious, then burned on pyres of their published books. He has a good old chuckle about this. He finds it very funny. It's not how I find it, but I think just from the author's point of view, I think, as opposed to what we're actually reading. Now let's see. We have that this is from the 3508th year of Leto's reign. Let me just check this. These historians were executed in the year 2116. So we're talking about a separation here of 1,392 years. I've also made a note that the execution of these historians is particularly, I just think it's evil. It's a horrible thing. And some quick etymology work, folks, here for you. Chinoa is, now this is an interesting one, because the etymology of this isn't kind of certain, but we have lots of kind of false meanings for it. So what I've got here, just from my own little bit of research, is that it says that the Native American origin, falsely meaning white dove or mourning dove, and mourning there as in someone who's mourning for a loved one who's passed, or dove of peace. These are not correct etymologies. My understanding is that the suggestion was that these might have been Cherokee terms, and having a wee look into it, as other people have done, they don't line up with the language at all. There's a town in Illinois called Chinoa. I thought this was quite funny. It says it has a population of 1,699 estimated, though it's called a city. So I just wrote city, laughing out loud. And there's also a possible link to a Hebrew term, a Hebrew name, which is God is gracious, but I couldn't find any other evidence for that. And it's also a possible old name for the Kentucky River. Now, Taosuoko was problematic. If we used the word Tao before, and I've written see chapter 8, God Emperor of Dune, volume 1, note 55, is to prepare leather skin for use, if you like. Let me just quickly jump back, because I've told myself to. Let's have a wee look. Chapter 8, 95. Tao, Old English, Taoian, Gitawish. Prepare, make ready, cultivate, and harass, insult, outrage. And then into Middle English, Taoian, to prepare a skin or hide for use. So that's what we got the last time. However, There's no name Tau Suko, but we do have a Suko, which is a Finnish surname, but like Harkonnen, which it's a toponym, I suppose, which pertains to wetlands, fens, swamps, that kind of thing. We do have a Tazuko, which I think is possibly the name we're looking for here, by the way. So we're not always certain of some of our etymological work, but is a Japanese female name, which means abundant child, or many children, which kind of fits with the Bene Gesserit names here. So we've got a confirmation of something that's happened 1,392 years ago. The confirmation coming from the God Emperor. We're just told the accounts of that time were judged to have originated with Lord Leto himself. So I've made a wee note here. It's a question, sorry. Does Leto control the oral history? I've been wondering about this, and I'm starting to think that he does. And our little epigraph, by the way, is Lord Leto to a penitent, someone who's saying they're sorry, from the oral history. Comments about the soul and anger and rage. People listen to their anger and rage. Very much true these days, I think. Julian saying the burning of the historians is probably Leto's most frightening and callous act. It is a disgusting act, isn't it? It's mass murder. Simple as that. And we'll get into it a wee bit here. But it is, and actually to render them unconscious, to set them on fire, and then to pile their books on top of it. Now, we should all know about burning books, shouldn't we, from history? I would say it's only secondary here to burning the actual historians themselves. But the people that burn, those who would burn books would also burn people, I think. When I grew up in Northern Ireland, we had this kind of stuff happen quite a lot as a kid. There were people who would be burning the Dungeons and Dragons stuff, which particularly because, especially me and my mates who played it, we didn't know anybody else who played it, and we got quite scared by these guys. I'd have been a kid back then. They would have also been burning, things like Black Sabbath records and stuff like that. Here, this would be our more sort of cookie Protestant types. They love burning stuff. But it's a disgusting way. If you're going to execute someone, it's a particularly disgusting thing to do. But they were rendered unconscious. Not quite sure how. But yeah, well, and history is an inquiry, as we've pointed out. Historia is the Greek verb to inquire. And there are bad histories, good histories, people who try to manipulate history, all sorts of things, and they're all actually worth investigating. Because when someone writes a bad history, it's good to compare that kind of thing to a good history. Pardon me. And the motives of somebody writing history are often personal. Why do you want to inquire into a particular thing? Pardon me. It's usually because of a particular interest, possibly relating to yourself, your people, your culture, or just that you're interested, you're a fan of it, you're a hobbyist, you're curious about that time in history. So we have Sisters Chinoa and Talsuako bring the handwritten records of an eyewitness account which says that when Lord Leto was petitioned by other historians seeking word of their fellows, Lord Leto said, "They were destroyed because they lied pretentiously. Have no fear that my wrath will fall upon you because of your innocent mistakes. I am not overly fond of creating martyrs. Martyrs tend to set dramatic events adrift in human affairs. Drama is one of the targets of my predation. Tremble only if you build false accounts and stand pridefully upon them. Go now, and do not speak of this." Okay. Now, the language here is partly the language of religion. We've got martyrs, we've got wrath, which is one of the 7 deadly sins. We've got pride, which is one of the 7 deadly sins. Sorry, in Catholicism, I might say. Pride to the ancient Greeks, Aristotle would tell you, that pride is the crown of virtues. You can, arete, to take, what is it, or Aristai, and my brain's away there. But excellence, to be proud in your work, if you like, it's not a bad thing. But these terms are certainly, especially with the discussion of the soul, in the epigraph, anger, rage here. This is wrath. This is Leto's wrath, telling someone not to have fear if you make innocent mistakes. I'd say you'd be terrified of making a mistake, whether you're innocent or not. You could even think of a kind of sort of Robert E. Howard kind of type thing. We could have the ghost of Frank Herbert standing behind me with, with some sort of Mala pistol, threatening me if I made a mistake, that kind of thing. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent thing there, wasn't it? But yeah, they were destroyed, by the way. They were murdered because they lied pretentiously. Everybody lies, don't they? The question is why. But basically, if you make an innocent mistake, he's saying, don't be afraid. I don't particularly want to create martyrs. They tend to set dramatic events adrift in human affairs. Now, drama is one of the targets of my predation. Drama is not dramatic events, by the way. And God knows why he wants to have a go at drama here. So let me just see quickly what I've written here. Language, martyrs, wrath, pride, and Christianity. Note B, pride, Aristotle, the crown of virtues. Drama, I've just put WTF. The Greek word drama is action, deed, play, or spectacle, from the Greek dryo, to do, to act, or perform. It is not the same as being dramatic. But I get what he's saying, actually, as well. To be all the drama that martyrs create. It depends on the martyr, if you like. Oh, goodness, I made a terrible joke the other week to my wife about my dog, because she was refusing her food and she'd rolled in shit. And I think I said, she's being a right little Bobby Sands today. It was and my wife just went, oh my God, that's terrible. And I went, I know, where did that come from? Was it too soon? But it just sort of popped out of my head, It was a weird thing. At the end of this, we get to mention targets. Drama is one of the targets of my predation. We don't know too much what the others are, but I'd argue one of them is historians. Tremble only if you build false accounts and stand pridefully upon them. Go now and do not speak of this. Part of me kind of wonders about the historians and what they wrote. Because if you are a historian, you're going to go about your business a certain way, aren't you? You're going to gather evidence, find a timeline, investigate multiple sources, primary, secondary, tertiary. You're going to look at archaeological evidence, literary evidence. You're going to look at as much as you can to try and form an accurate picture, hopefully, of what's going on. And if you don't want to go about doing that, then you're going to be identified as a shit historian very quickly. If you see what I mean. Now, internal evidence of the handwritten account identifies its author as iconocry, Lord Leto's major domo in the year 2116. Now, I'd written next to go now and do not speak of this, who? And I've also written next to iconocry, is this Leto? Because at the same time, we have to say this. Sisters Chinoa and Taosuko have returned. They've been given confirmation about this from Leto, by the looks of it. They bring the handwritten records of an eyewitness, which says that when Lord Leto was petitioned by other historians seeking word of their fellows, Lord Leto said this. So I'm amazed that the other historians had the nerve to kind of come and see what's happened to our buddies, to our peers. But the distance between this, here's some documents that prove what I say. Thank you. And they're from what 1,900 odd years ago. And they're handwritten and attributed to somebody, but there's no suggestion that they could be by iconic. It's not solid evidence by my standards, certainly. Now, iconicry, or however iconicer, or however we want to pronounce it, I think it's iconicer. The best I can tell is from the Greek word icon, which I'm sure you most know, is a likeness, an image, a portrait, and it can even be your reflection in a mirror or stream or something like that. Now, ikonia means to be like or look like, and leads eventually to the word iconicus, which is Latin, which means pertaining to an image. And if you add the iker suffix onto it, to do with an image, that means pertaining to. So pertaining to iconiker is a likeness, an image, or pertaining to an image, and it might not be a real person at all. It does say that Lord Leto's major domo in the year 2116 was iconiker. But my question is this Leto? Attention is called to Lord Leto's use of the word predation. This is highly suggestive in view of theories advanced by Reverend Mother Si that the God Emperor views himself as a predator in the natural sense. He's going to predate on drama. I wouldn't call that natural predation, is it? Yeah, it's a bit like war on terror, isn't it? It's you're fighting a war against an abstract, if you see what I mean. Is a point that old Harry would make out in old Harry's game, you know. But yeah, Julian was saying the burning of the historians is probably Leto's most frightening and callous act. I'm currently translating a Bobby Sands poem out of the Irish for a class. Weird coincidence you mentioning him. Yeah, it was a goodness. It was a weird thing, wasn't it? Oh, excuse me. It just sort of popped out. It was just an observation that the dirty protest, and our Noodles was having a bit of a protest because I bought her the wrong food. But yes, indeed. It made me laugh. It was one of those dark jokes. Me and my wife and I have quite a dark sense of humor, if you know what I mean. Chinoa is an amazing textual analyst. I think it's why Leto chose her to preserve messages. She's got particular training, doesn't she, Julian? Cynthia said, interesting that Leto burns the historians in his citadel and not in a public place. I wonder if they lied about the Atreides, so he punished them in their presence. After a fashion. Very good. Yeah, things that happen underground in Leto's crypt. The Duncan dies in Leto's crypt. The only witness really to it is Leto, I suppose. And we get Moneo coming in the aftermath, don't we? But he's not actually witness to the events, so it's quite possible. That this account is iconicers. The accounts of that time at the same time within the Bene Gesserit comments here. The accounts of that time were judged to have originated with Lord Leto himself. That's their evaluation on it. Handwritten. So it's interesting enough. It's curious, isn't it? But burning books that you don't agree with, whether they're lies or not, it's like, would you burn a copy of Mein Kampf, for example, if you got a copy of it? And as much as it's not a particularly nice book, at the same time, if you want to study World War II, Hitler and all that stuff, it's a good place to start to understand his madness, Not all books are nice. Not all of them are pretty. Not all of them are truthful. And not all histories are accurate at all. Something that we do know, as I'm sure you all know by now, is that history is fluid. what we think, what we call history is fluid. It changes. Our understanding of things changes, and grows, because we find out stuff. We find out more things. We discover new documents, new archaeological evidence that sheds light on things. We're having such a gush last week about the discovery. Again, I haven't caught any further details on this yet, but I can't wait to get confirmation of the discovery of the real D'Artagnan that the character's based on in the church in Maastricht. And he has living relatives, which is, so they're going to get a DNA check. I can't wait to find out that if it's him or not, But certainly, records indicate that he was killed in a battle just out there. Where his body went, whatever happened to him, and it was reported that he was shot in the throat by a musket ball. All of these things line up with the body, but the DNA will prove it. A little bit of an addition to an interesting time in history. It's always fascinating. There's always things going on. I'm always learning stuff. I actually, in relation to what Julian was saying about Bobby Sands, Julian, I think I talked about was it Jean McConville a wee while back. One of her children just passed away again this weekend, and I think I was saying I was convinced that they hadn't found her body. She's one of the disappeared. They actually have found her, and oddly enough, they found her in a year that I was out of the country. So her body was accidentally discovered in 2003. So there you go. There's me being wrong or misinformed, or my knowledge was not up to date. Things happen like that. I'm not, if a historian wrote a book about me, and a living history or something, and I'm still around and I read it and they got things wrong, I wouldn't want to murder them and set fire to the book. I'd correct them, if you like, and leave it up to them. But it's an interesting thing. It's a horrible thing, and we should associate. We have a number of World War II associations within the Dune series, things like the Sardaukar, stormtroopers, this kind of thing. But burning books is definitely a Nazi thing, isn't it? Well, it's been done here as well. People who wish to change a historical narrative to present their own, or that they have such hatred of a thing, or usually it's such fear of a thing that they burn books. But no, to burn books is disgusting. Is a disgusting thing to do. Oddly enough, we're just chatting a wee bit there, but we have that. We've activated a little video there on the channel, which is a fan effort by some good people in Spain. Just a fan-made thing, there's a picture of David Lynch on it. It's just to disguise it, But second only to burning a book, I think, is shutting down a book deliberately, which the Herbert estate has done with the Dune Encyclopedia, which I've commented before. I think is a particularly disgusting act, and we do our best to spread that book around. Horrible thing to do. It's an act of literary assassination, I think. We must have a wee chat about it sometime, actually. We've got Willis C. McNally's response to it being shut down on the computer here somewhere. And also Willis C. McNally's the man that delivered, he was very heavily involved with Frank and the Dune universe as an academic, but was the man that delivered his eulogy. But I absolutely despise the Herbert estate for shutting that book down legally. It's a disgusting act, and they should be completely ashamed of themselves. But they make their money, don't they? I've actually been thinking about doing a sort of, maybe attempting to do a sort of Dune spoof and calling it The Life of Brian of Dune, and combining Dune with The Life of Brian, if you see what I mean. He wasn't the Kwisatz Haderach, he was just born in the castle next door. Let's see. Something's an interesting leader burns the historians in a citadel, not in public place. Wonder if they lied about the Atreides. So he punished them in their presence after a fashion. And Julian said, for those not familiar with Northern Ireland, Jean McConville was a single mother disappeared and murdered by Provost for alleged and unproved informant. Yes, indeed. Most fingers point to Jerry Adams. Yeah, it's one completely innocent one. completely disgusting murder. We know a few people who were involved in it as well. But yeah, she had another one of her kids passed away. I think the last time we talked about it, Julian, was previously when one of her children passed away, and I thought that they hadn't lived to see their mother buried. Well, I'm very, very pleased to hear that she was found in 2003, was interred, buried properly. But it's one of the great shames, one of the great disgusting acts of our terrorist scumbags. you know, we shouldn't say our terrorist scumbags, but just the terrorist scumbags that inhabit our country. And there's still plenty of them about. But yes, indeed. For anybody who wants to kind of or want a wee literary aside into that kind of thing, Seamus Heaney makes an interesting contrast between, I think, is it in the north? Some of his poems look at the bog bodies. I must do some of these for you, actually, which are fascinating. Things like Ch11 Man and stuff. Bog bodies are found in a certain region of the world. If you like, Ireland and Northern Ireland have a good few. And you'll find them in the Netherlands and Denmark and Germany and so on. Usually people who have been... Ch11 Man's a great one, by the way. I'll quickly type it in for you. If you want to see what a body preserved in peat looks like, what incredible preservation. Ch11 Man is a person who's been ritually murdered, quite possibly in an act of tanistry, if you like. And the body's so well preserved, we even know what he had to eat. You can see his face, his hat, and the rope around his neck is still there. Heaney compared this to the paramilitary executions of innocent people here. Many of whom were dumped in the bogs that Northern Ireland has a lot of. We have a lot of peat and stuff here. But most people in Northern Ireland live on the coast. But a large part of our country is bog, peatlands, if you like. So there we go. Sorry, a wee bit of a jump off there. But yeah, historians, people making mistakes, it's not a thing to kill them for. And bad books are bad books, bad histories are bad histories. But they have their value, if you see what I mean. And to wipe things out from the written record, the Romans have a term for it, just to obliterate things, is memento damnatio. And they would do it with people, with works, all sorts of things, Just wipe out everything that anything has ever been known about a person so that no one can ever speak of them again. Now, we have a Reverend Mother Si here. Pardon me. So I'll just read this wee bit again. Attention is called to Lord Leto's use of the word predation. This is highly suggestive in view of theories advanced by Reverend Mother Si that the God Emperor views himself as a predator in the natural sense. Now, she's one of the 5 Reverend Mothers that writes this report. In terms of getting her name, this is a bit of an interesting one. Si is a variant of Siska or Sis. I'll spell these for you. Siska, Siska, or Siska, Syska, which are names in Slavic, Hungarian, and have Eastern European roots as well. Within Polish, Czech, and Slovak languages, it means a couple of meanings. Sorry, pine cone, or someone with a cone-shaped head, cone heads, or a quick and agile person, or a squirrel. In Albanian, it's Shishka, I think, which means having marked eyes, and can also refer to livestock with markings around the eyes. And Saskia then itself, another version of this name, is a Germanic, is a word from Dutch origin, I think, and it means a Germanic woman of Saxon origin or Saxon descent. Can mean a Saxon woman or a woman from Saxony. As I've also got just Saxon, it can also mean knife. So I kind of like the squirreling away to find stuff out, if you see what I mean. It's an interesting name. I made a wee note. I got this off doing the etymological work. The wife of Rembrandt is called Saskia van Uylenburg. There you go, a famous Saskia. So that's what her name means. I think that a bunch of the Reverend Mother's names here are quite suggestive, though we'll only get most of them at the very last page of the chapter. So Sister Chinoa was invited to accompany the fish speakers in an entourage which accompanied one of Lord Leto's infrequent peregrinations. At one point, she was invited to trot beside the royal cart and converse with the Lord Leto himself. She reports the exchange as follows. By the way, I agree with Julian. I think Chinoa is a great character, by the way. The Lord Leto said, this is the way we get our reportage here. The Lord Leto said, "Here on the royal road, I sometimes feel that I stand on battlements protecting myself against invaders." So he feels like he's under attack. It reminds me on Zaphod Beeblebrox's brain specialist gag Hellfront. So you feel you're under attack, do you? This kind of thing. Anyway, I feel that I stand on battlements protecting myself against invaders. Sister Chinoa said, "No one attacks you here, Lord." The Lord Leto said, "You Bene Gesserit assail me on all sides. Even now, you seek to suborn my fish speakers." Now, suborn is an interesting word. It means to incite someone secretly. From the Latin sub, which is secret or secretly or below, and omere, which means to equip. That leads to the word subornare, which is to incite secretly, and then we get the modern word suborn. So even now you seek to suborn my fish speakers, you seek to incite them secretly, is what he means there. Sister Chinoa says that she steeled herself for death, but the God Emperor merely stopped his cart and looked across her at his entourage. She says the others stopped and waited on the road I'll read that again. She says the others stopped and waited on the road in well-trained passivity, all of them at a respectful distance. Well-trained passivity. Dear, oh dear. What was I thinking on, actually? In some ways, in reading this, Morlocks and Eloy from the Time Machine, that kind of thing, which looks at H.G. Wells's wonderful novella. I love the Time Machine. Love the film, the old George Powell one. George Powell films, Julian, are brilliant. Check them out. Science fiction gold, but especially War of the Worlds, When Worlds Collide, and the Time Machine. There's a couple of other great ones too, actually. Sorry, folks, I'm just grabbing a wee bit of tobacco here. Well-trained passivity just made me think of the Eloy, with Leto being very much a gigantic Morlock, if you like. So she's ready for death here. Even though you seek to suborn my fish speakers, this is what they're actually up to, isn't it? She steeled herself for death, which I think is quite brave. I get the sense generally bravery is a trait that we can associate with Sister Chinoa, regardless of her other abilities, which we'll find out about in a moment. And I quite like this conversation with her and the Lord Leto. The Lord Leto said, "There is my little multitude, and they tell me everything. Do not deny my accusation." And I've got a question about this before we go any further. Sorry, Sister Chinoa said, "I do not deny it." So she's truthful with it. But there's my little multitude, and they tell me everything. Do not deny my accusation. Here's the thing I've got a bit of bother with here. If we've got Bene Gesserit in Leto's other memory, the suggestion is that other individuals in other memory can't hide anything from him, which doesn't quite go with what we've learned from other individuals in other memory, especially in Children of Dune, where we've got different versions of Paul, different versions of the Baron, this kind of thing. And I'd imagine that the Bene Gesserit in Leto's other memory might try to hide, wouldn't give things away. But his little multitude, they tell me everything. Why? I just written, why would Bene Gesserit in other memory do this? Doesn't quite make sense. If they have their own plans and goals, you'd think that maybe they'd have a bit of loyalty to the sisterhood, even in death. Especially when we've got a sister like Chinoa here, who's been sent to do certain things here with the God Emperor, but is ready for death. If it comes, she's a really brave woman. So there is my little multitude, and they tell me everything. Do not deny the accusation. Sister Chinoa said, I do not deny it. The Lord Leto looked at her then and said, have no fear for your person. It is my wish that you report my words in your chapter house. Sister Chinoa says she could see then that the Lord Leto knew all about her mission, her special training as an oral recorder, everything. He was like a Reverend Mother, she said. I could hide nothing from him. And she's wise not to in this sense, if that's what she gets. We get this kind of running thing with can he read minds? And I don't think so, but it's just simply accumulation of knowledge, spies, this kind of thing. And we also discover, by the way, that as we go through this chapter, that the Lord Leto does have surveillance. He has eyes on all sorts of people, hasn't he? Cynthia says, I interpreted my little multitude to refer to his fish speaker entourage that he's looking at as he speaks. They tell him what the Bene Gesserit are doing. It's almost it's almost a paradoxical statement, isn't it? Oxymoronic. Little multitude. I hadn't thought of that, Cynthia. Let's have a wee nosy. I wonder. There's my little multitude. Mary stopped his cart and looked across at his entourage. Let me just have a wee nosy here. Let me make a wee note. So it's the fish speakers. Sorry, hang on, wrong coloured pen. That's interesting. Bear with me a wee second. Accompanying the fish speakers in an entourage. That's who she's accompanying. Chop beside the royal cart, converse, blah blah blah. Here in the royal cart, still protecting myself. Bear with me. Even though you seek to suborn my fish speakers. Looked across her at his entourage. Yeah, he's looking at them, isn't he, as he speaks? At his entourage. She says the others stopped and waited on the road in well-trained passivity. I actually thought, oh, thank you very much. That's a very good point, Cynthia. I actually thought those in Welsh that was courtiers, if you like, along for the ride as well, as opposed to but yeah, it could well be. My little multitude to refer to as fish speakers. Yeah, that's a good point. I think you could be right there. Because it's them that are spying, isn't it? We'll get to that. The increase in fish speaker spies, etc., on the different planets. Good point. Thank you. My little multitude. Yeah, why not just the multitude? And they tell me everything. So I do not deny it. Yes, indeed. Right. Let's see. Where do we get to? So Chinoa is here on a particular mission. She's got special training as an oral recorder. She's told not to fear because Leto wants her to repeat exactly what he says to Chapter House. He was like a Reverend Mother, she said. I could hide nothing from him. The Lord Leto then commanded her, look toward my festival city and tell me what you see. Sister Chinoa looked toward On and said, I see the city in the distance. It is beautiful in this morning light. There is your forest on the right. It has so many greens in it, I could spend all day describing them. Sounds like Ireland. On the left and all around the city, there are the houses and the gardens of your servitors. Some of them look very rich and some look very poor. I've written a little question. Why? Um, the homes of the people that serve Leto, some of them are rich, some of them are poor. Um, it's not a good indication to a God Emperor that your staff are living in, not the best of terms, if you like, But we've got some interesting stuff about the forest here. So that's her opinion on what she sees. I did a wee quick doodle of, there you go, the forest to the right, and etc. The Lord Leto said, "We have cluttered this landscape. Trees are a clutter. Houses, gardens, you cannot exult at new mysteries in such a landscape." Okay, I don't know what you think about that. For the houses and gardens, I don't know. A garden's a wonderful thing, full of life. All sorts of little things you can find in the garden if you just look. The tree bit bothers me. Trees are a clutter. What on earth is that about? I love trees. We've got some great forests here in Northern Ireland. Not that too many of them are left, but we've got loads of great forest parks and stuff. Some of our forests are truly kind of, primeval. Seeing that we've lost an awful lot of our trees just to this ash dieback problem recently. And it seems that a response by our government to rush and do something about this may have been premature. It looks like the next generation of saplings that the trees produce are immune. There you go. There's a thing about if somebody wants to check out on New Scientist's channel, but they just went. I think they've been cutting about 90% of them down, which is ridiculous. But yeah, trees are not a clutter. I love trees. I love forests. Absolutely adore them. I'd love to live in one. Love to live in a forest. But you cannot exalt at new mysteries in such a landscape. I disagree. But he's cluttered the landscape. Once all of this was desert, I suppose. Now it's just got stuff on it, hasn't it? Trees, buildings, gardens. Sister Chinoa, emboldened by Lord Leto's assurances, asked, "Does the Lord truly want mysteries?" The Lord Leto said, "There is no outward spiritual freedom in such a landscape. Do you not see it? You have no open universe here with which to share. Everything is closures, doors, latches, locks." I've written next to that, WTF, trees. No outward spiritual freedom. I'm really not too sure how to interpret this. We've got another comment coming along, I think. No outward spiritual freedom. You can have inward spiritual freedom. But the God Emperor's got a comment to make about that. Sister Chinoa asked, "Has mankind no longer any need for privacy and protection?" And that made me laugh, actually, because it's a big problem here. I think privacy and security protection seems to be going down the shithole, basically. But one of the things I always say about Northern Irish people is they don't understand boundaries. And if you understand that we've got a boundaries commission, it's a funny thing. The Lord Leto said, "When you return, tell your sisters that I will restore the outward view. Such a landscape as this one turns you inward in search of whatever freedom your spirits can find within. Most humans are not strong enough to find freedom within." I thought about Hamlet there. "I could bind myself in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space. Was it were it not that I had bad dreams?" Something like that, wasn't it? I used to teach in a prison. God, long time ago. But when did I teach in a prison? 2004 to 2005, I think, for a year, up in McGilligan there. It's something I used to tell the prisoners. How it's a thing. Your mind, your imagination can free you. That you're in here, and your body as much as a prison in some ways for your mind, but you can be free yourself, if you like, mentally. So Leto doesn't think that most of us can do this. I disagree. I think it's good to explore the inner self, if you like. It's one of those, how would we put it? Certainly from a philosophical point of view, we run with the unexamined life is not worth living, this kind of thing. But it's philosophically speaking, it's good to know who you are and what makes you tick, and to examine what you do and how you behave and how you live, and to you bring this on board, if you like, and change if you want. It's an interesting thing, but he doesn't think enough of us can deal with the inward view population of the Dune universe. It's the outward view that he'll restore. And we get this kind of sense that people have become a bit, just, I don't know, pedestrian in their lives, I suppose, which is a kind of interesting way of putting it whenever we get to a little bit later on our report onto in the universe, the state of the universe. Oh, for goodness sake, where is it? I draw a foot. I must have walked right past it. When we're talking about transport, etc. Transport guilt, walking on foot, it's restricting people's movements by making them walk, is a thing from previous books. So do you truly want mysteries? There is no outward spiritual freedom. It's an absolute, isn't it? You have no open universe here with which to share. Everything is closures, doors, latches, locks. Doesn't really apply. I don't get the forest thing here at all. Maybe the suggestion. The only thing that I could think of in relation is trees are a clutter. You cannot exalt at new mysteries in such a landscape. It made me think that maybe he's talking about just that you have old mysteries in such a place. But I didn't think he was being that deep, to be honest with you. You know, most humans are not strong enough to find freedom within. You know, thanks for letting us know, big guy. Sister Chinoa said, "I will report your words accurately, Lord." The Lord Leto said, "See that you do. Tell your sisters also that the Bene Gesserit of all people should know the dangers of breeding for a particular characteristic, of seeking a defined genetic goal." Sister Chinoa says that this was an obvious reference to the Lord Leto's father, Paul Atreides. Let it be noted that our breeding program achieved the exquisite Satarak one generation early. In becoming Muad'Dib, the leader of the Fremen, Paul Atreides escaped from our control. There is no doubt that he was a male with the powers of a Reverend Mother and other powers for which humankind still is paying a heavy price. As the Lord Leto said, "You get the unexpected. You got me, the wild card, and I have achieved Shana." I was kind of wondering about the tenses there with just Sister Chinoa says. We've had it previously there, haven't we? Sister Chinoa says. But then prior to that, we have Sister Chinoa said. We've got a shift from past tense. Says is third person present, isn't it? I find that a bit confusing. Wonder why not Sister Chinoa said. Nitpicking, I suppose. In becoming Muad'Dib, so I'll just read that again. I have gone forward for that. I'll just just for my own benefit, if you don't mind. Sister Chinoa says that this was an obvious reference to the Lord Leto's father, Paul Atreides. Let it be noted that our breeding program achieved the exquisite Satarak one generation early. In becoming Muad'Dib, the leader of the Fremen, Paul Atreides escaped from our control. There is no doubt that he was a male with the powers of a Reverend Mother and other powers for which humankind still is paying a heavy price. As the Lord Leto said, "You got the unexpected, you got me, the wild card, and I have achieved Shana." The Lord Leto refused to elaborate on this reference to the daughter of his major domo, Maneo. The matter is being investigated. I've written next to that, boasting. He's boasting. And he's also being incredibly vague as well. He's telling them something, isn't he? I've achieved something. He doesn't say what, but I've achieved Shana. But what does that mean? It's enough. And of course, that Sister Chinoa, is an oral recorder. So this is everything that's being said here is for the benefit of other people, isn't it? He refused to elaborate on this reference. The Lord Leto refused to elaborate on this reference to the daughter of his major domo Maneo. The matter is being investigated. In other matters of concern to the chapter house, our investigators have supplied information on. So here we go. So that's the first, this little separation in this report. Is our first part there is we have Sister Chinoa trotting along and having a wee bit of a conversation with the God Emperor. We learn that the God Emperor is a murderer and he burns books. Potentially he's a liar, and also potentially the iconography is not who that he is responsible for the oral history. I'm not 100% sure on that at the minute, but it's looking likely, to be honest. And with the Bene Gesserit suggesting that they think it's down to Leto as well. Goodness gracious, I need fluids, folks. Here we go. So they say, as per the opening sentences, we're reading an abridged edition of the report. Yes, indeed. So perhaps we're hearing the editor quote at times, Chinoa said, and summarizing at other times, Chinoa says. Yeah, I don't think it was. I just made a wee note. I just want to put a question mark to it, just tenses, question mark. But yes, indeed, we're moving about in time here with this, aren't we? As well, which is a thing that Frank loves doing, and he does very well. So we're getting this as a report from after these events, etc., etc. Yeah, it's it's an interesting one. Julian's saying, Leto's infrastructure seems to be a multi-generation form of suburban claustrophobia. Very good. The intention seems to create longing for frontierism. I don't know why trees do this. Thank you. I don't know either. Leto is absolutely a liar. He is indeed. It's important to not trust a word he says, but to use his lies as important lessons to distrust your leader. Yes, we have to remember. Well, this is the thing. Leto's the God Emperor is a fascinating character. In many ways, he should be a hero. In many ways, he can be seen as a villain. He's in this book. I think it's again partly to do with the lessons that Frank was trying to show us through Paul Atreides. Is we can consider this is the way I've always put it: is if you think of the first three books as a warning about such an individual, book 4 here is kind of where we're getting a bit of an explanation of some of it, but it's kind of, here comes the sun. I warned you, didn't I? Well, here's something that's much, much worse. Yeah, I actually thought as much as I said, if you listen to the wee link there, you'll Frank chuckle about the murder of the historians there, particularly at that point where they're burned, and I kind of wondered why. But yeah, we're going to have to tear through those audio. I'm going to set it up actually, get some snacks and some juice. I'm going to put a film on that I don't need words for, something like 2001, excuse me, and see what we can find out actually from Frank himself. But he's certainly a very interesting, complex character. Yeah, he's not to be trusted at all. And how we look at history, how we look at the words here, written historians having their works destroyed. Almost all of Dune is history, isn't it? It's all future history. Looking back, there is an editor or a compiler or something at work. It's always been one of the big mysteries, if you like, is who is the is there more than one, but who is the writer of the Dune Chronicles, the Dune Saga, if you like, from far future point of view. But yes, I agree. He absolutely is a liar, and don't trust him. And as I said, I think we have to, the term is apologia, isn't it? Let me just give you a definition of that rather than me. Apologia is a formal reasoned defense of one's actions, opinions, or beliefs, derived from the ancient Greek apologia, a speech in defense. That's what an apology is. Sorry, from my point of view, unlike a modern apology, it rarely expresses regret, but rather justifies a position. Classic examples include Socrates' defense in Plato's Apology and Newman's Apologia pro vita sua, which I don't know. But apologia is a formal written defense of one's opinions or conduct. We've got, let's see, who, just quickly looking at, oh goodness, that's probably the one I did in school. Justin Martyr's first apology from AD 155 to 157. Oh, that's the one that was employed by John Henry Newman's Apologia pro vita sua, a defense of one's own life. There you go. Greek philosophers Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle described apologia as an oratory to defend positions or actions, particularly in the sense of a legal defense. Socrates believed an apology to be a well-thought justification of accusations made. Socrates represents this act of defending oneself in Plato's apology. Socrates justifies the claims made against him by being direct and honest. Socrates attempts, this is a badly written stuff, isn't it? Socrates attempts at justification rather than expressing remorse were unsuccessful, demonstrating the complexity in apologies among individuals. And then we're back to, we were talking about penitentiaries earlier. Justin Martyr wrote the first apology and second apology to explain the philosophical basis for Christianity and to encourage the Roman Emperor Antonius Pius and the Roman Senate to stop the persecution and martyrdom of early Christians. There we go. So again, my sense of the word is very much from the classical world, and yeah, they don't always go right, but I think that's very much what we're getting from the God Emperor in his own words throughout this book. So here comes the rest of the report of the Bene Gesserit. This is good because we've jumped so far ahead. What are we? We're in the 3,000. Well, at this point, 3,508 years forward, if you like, of the reign of the Lord from our previous book. It's a heck of a jump. If you think about the difference in where we are now, in the year 2026, if you want to jump back 3,500 years and see where our society and culture is, let me see, around 1500 BC, how different is our world in every sense of the word, from them. It's a big leap forward, even in a future society that is essentially feudal. So here we go, the Bene Gesserit report. First one up is the fish speakers. Let's get this on with it. There we go. The fish speaker. So here we go. The Lord Leto's female legions have elected their representatives to attend the decennial festival on Arrakis. 3 representatives will attend from each planetary garrison. See attached list of those chosen. As usual, no adult males will attend, not even consorts of fish speaker officers. The consort list has changed very little in this reporting period. We have appended the new names with genealogical information where available. Note that only 2 of the names can be starred as descendants of the Duncan, Idaho Golas. We can add nothing new to our speculation about about his use of the Golas in his breeding program. None of our efforts to form an alliance between fish speakers and Bene Gesserit succeeded during this period. That's again with Chinoa trying to suborn the fish speakers, as we were just mentioning previously. Lord Leto continues to increase certain garrison sizes. He also continues to emphasize the alternative missions of the fish speakers, de-emphasizing their military missions. This has had the expected result of increasing local admiration and respect and gratitude for the presence of the fish speaker garrisons. See attached list for garrisons which were increased in size. Here's our editor, by the way. Editor's note: the only pertinent garrisons were those on the home planets of the Bene Gesserit, Ixians, and Tleilaxu. Spacing Guild monitors were not increased. Let me just check that I wrote that down correctly. The only pertinent garrisons were those on the home planets of the Bene Gesserit, Ixians, and Tleilaxu. Yeah, so, pardon me, fluids. So, fish speaker garrisons on every planet, a military presence. He's increasing these garrisons on the Bene Gesserit, Ixian, and Tleilaxu worlds, not the Guild. And as for everyone else, he's he increased certain garrison sizes. The missions are switching from military to other forms, possibly religious, social, and this has had the expected result. This is what he intends to create, of increasing local admiration and respect and gratitude for the presence of the fish speaker garrisons. I think there's a wee bit of Irish stuff there, to be honest with you, a wee bit of a hint of that. The way certain people look at certain regiments of the British Army in this country. You know, some people will see them as historically, I suppose, we were here shooting the shit out of everyone. Other people see them as protecting us from this kind of thing. Tends to be a picky, not picky, what's the word? A prickly subject in this country, I suppose. So more fish speakers to the Bene Gesserit, the Tleilaxu, and the Ixians, not the Guild. But there's Guild monitors. We're not increasing. That's the word there, isn't it? Monitor. And the other note that I've just written here is, who is the editor? Editor's note. Who is that? Interesting. Let's see. Next up is the priesthood. Oh, here, hang on. Let's back up a second. No adult males will attend, not even consorts of fish speaker officers. The consort list. Consort is a term. How would I put it? A consort is the spouse of a monarch, whether they be male or female. That's what a consort is. It has another meaning as well. So that didn't quite. It's an interesting word. And I was kind of wondering why use it when actually what I got a sense of in relation to the fish speaker officers, no adult males, even consorts. We're going to get a bit of a chat about what's happened to family life in Leto's empire. But I kind of got the sense that Frank was trying to use a term here that would be the equivalent of a male concubine, which would just be the same word, wouldn't it? It'd be male concubine rather than female. But consort's a particularly interesting word. So men don't get to go to the peregrination. Oh, the decennial festival, sorry, on Arrakis. Decennial is every 10 years, by the way. So basically it's a bit of a, I don't know, how would you call it, a powwow or something like that. All of the fish speakers from all over the universe, 3 from every planet, come to the festival city, if you like, for a big party. I'm trying to think of the different words that I could use here, but I was thinking it's not really a big shindig, is it? So it's an interesting, very much the inversion of gender here, with the all-female army, but there's no men. And we also have a wee update that only 2 of the names can be starred as descendants of the Duncan Idaho Golas. We can add nothing new to our speculation about his use of the Golas in the breeding program. So it seems it's quite an occasional, rare thing for the Duncan Idaho Golas to stud, if you like. There's not too many descendants here. It's de-emphasizing military, so getting away from the violence and the killing and the slaughtering, and going elsewhere. We're not really told what alternative missions, but that they make the local population admire, respect, and have gratitude for the fish speaker garrisons. Glad to have you here. Thank goodness, this kind of thing. Priesthood is our next one then. Except for the few natural deaths and replacements which are listed in attachments, there have been no significant changes. Those consorts and officers delegated to perform the ritual duties remain few. Their powers abridged, their requirements for consultation with Arrakis before taking any important action. I thought there should be another comma in there between the word abridged and there. Their remain few, their powers abridged, comma, I think, should be there. Their requirements for consultation with Arrakis before taking any important action. It is the opinion of the Reverend Mother Si and some others that the religious character of the fish speakers is slowly being devolved. Excuse me. Devolution's a thing in this, isn't it? Religious character. So not so much the priests, again, consorts. Is the priesthood male here? I'm not too sure. Officers would suggest fish speakers. Delegated to perform the ritual duties. Rite and ritual is a big part of Lord Raglan's work, isn't it, that Frank's heavily into. Remain few. Their powers abridged. Their requirements for consultation with Arrakis before taking any important action. So they're being kept on a tight leash, aren't they? It's the opinion of Reverend Mother Si and some others that the religious character of the fish speakers is slowly being devolved. Priesthoods, so I've written here, priesthood seems to be made up of consorts of fish speakers and officers, men or fish speakers, I'm not too sure. Mainly fish speakers, but this is slowly changing. And again, I suppose with the status quo that the fish speakers have been in their position for many, for thousands of years, there must be some kind of stagnation in all aspects of the empire, really. So this is my text, says their powers abridged by continuing requirements for consultation with Arrakis before taking any important actions. Let's have a wee nosy. Let's see, is this me being snoozy? Thanks. Their powers. Their powers. Right. Abridged by continuing. Right. Bear with me a second. Let me find out. Right. What I've got. Let's see. Have I written the right thing? Has this been me? Let's just go with it. Those consorts and officers delegated to perform the ritual duties remain few, comma, their powers abridged, their requirements for consultation with Arrakis before taking any important action. Their powers abridged by continuing requirement for consultation with Arrakis before taking any important action. What did I say? I have the same as Cynthia. Did I read that wrong, folks? There were consorts and officers delegated to perform their right. Bear with me a second. Where are we? Start there. Oh, got a lot of stuff on the page here. Where are we? Those consorts, right there. Those consorts and officers delegated to perform the ritual duties remain few, comma, their powers abridged, their requirements for consultation with Arrakis before taking any important action. Their powers abridged. Right, where's that? That's there you go. There. Their powers abridged. Oh, right. Okay. So I've got their powers abridged, their requirements for consultation. That's in my book. You've got their powers abridged by continuing requirement for consultation. Right. Yeah. No, that it's not me. Thanks. Thank God it's not me. Starting to get a bit worried about that. Yeah, I've got that's an error in my text. Then I thought there should be a comma there, but there's clearly something not right. Thank you very much. Let's fix this. Perform the ritual duties. Right. The powers abridged by. Where is it? There it is. Right. The powers abridged by continuing. Yeah. That's not what I've got here at all. It's not me. Thank you very much. By continuing. I thought it was a requirement for. By continuing requirement for consultation. Yeah, that word there. That's what it is. Thank you very much. I've fixed that in my text there. There we go. But not quite what I've got. Goodness, I thought there was me thinking, I've been making a few mistakes lately because I've been a bit tired and stressed, etc. And we're starting to hit them now, aren't we? The real ones. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, Bojack and Cynthia, I appreciate it. No, in my copy, it didn't flow right, did it? Their powers abridged, their requirement for consultations. What I've got should be their powers abridged by continuing requirement for consultation. Excellent. Thank you very much. Let me just fix that in my notes. Obviously, I've taken, actually, it's the exact spot where I've taken a wee arrow up and went comma question mark, and it's no. It should have by continuing. So we're getting some changes in the text. I thought we were getting away with it in this book because again, God Emperor of Dune is the first book in the Dune series that's not been fixed up from a set of short stories published in magazine format into novel. This is the first actual novel of the Dune series. Thank you very much, guys. That's a wee mistake there. I'll read that again. Then, priesthood, except for the few natural deaths and replacements which are listed in attachments, there have been no significant changes. Those consorts and officers delegated to perform their ritual duties remain few, their powers abridged by continuing consultation with Arrakis. By continuing requirement for consultation with Arrakis before taking any important action. By continuing is missing in my copy. That's this one here, folks, and it's been replaced by the word there. God knows why. It didn't really flow, did it at all? Before taking any important action, in the opinion of the Reverend Mother Si, and some others, that the religious character of the fish speakers is slowly being devolved. Bear with me a wee second. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Goodness gracious. Oh, I'm feeling better about this. That's two today that haven't been me. Cheers, folks. So this, I wonder if Leto is devolving the religious aspects of the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother priesthood as well. Text doesn't say, though. It's a strangely short segment on a rich topic for the Bene Gesserit historian. Yeah. I think possibly it's in relation to the state of the universe. But from kind of Dune Messiah on, we've seen the rise of the priesthood, haven't we? The part of the groups that form around such a charismatic individual such as Paul Atreides. I think it shows how much their power has been diminished, if you like. Again, we've got all of these different groups who are very much on a different footing than whenever we first saw them. It's quite possible the fish speakers kind of evolved out of the likes of Alia's Amazon bodyguards, But yeah, the priesthood seems significantly diminished here. Few natural deaths and replacements. They're delegated, consorts and officers delegated to perform ritual duties remain few. Powers abridged, oh, not about that again, by continuing requirements for consultation with Arrakis. So they're being kept on a tight leash. I got there before the opinion of Reverend Mother Siaxa, and some others that the religious character of the fish speakers is slowly being devolved. Towards what, we're not sure. But what about the consorts there? Oh. And again, why? Next up is the breeding program. Other than the unexplained reference to Shanna and to our failure with his father, we have nothing significant to add to our continued monitoring of the Lord Leto's breeding program. There is evidence of a certain randomness in his plan, which is reinforced by the Lord Leto's statement about genetic goals, but we cannot be certain that he was truthful with Sister Chinoa. We call your attention to the many instances where he has either lied or changed directions dramatically and without warning. So changing directions dramatically, I think, is kind of interesting and suggests a level of hypocrisy about the God Emperor as well, doesn't it? If we consider his previous little rant about martyrs and drama. You know, martyrs tend to set dramatic events adrift in human affairs. Drama is one of the targets of my predation. Bear with me. There we go. Yeah. And again, with the Bene Gesserit and so on, they have certain abilities, don't they? I was kind of wondering if Sister Chinoa was a truth sayer. But we cannot be certain that he was truthful with Sister Chinoa. It's possible that she might not have been. Many instances where he's either lied or changed directions dramatically and without warning. Doing a bit random. Did I say something about Donald Trump today, that he lies all the time? Just is a bit random, isn't he, in his madness? And I think they put out somebody put out a sort of statement that said it's deliberate. It's to keep everybody guessing, not knowing what he's up to. Fair enough. The Lord Leto continues to prohibit our participation in his breeding program. His monitors from our fish speaker garrison remain adamant in weeding out our births to which they object. Only by the most stringent controls were we able to maintain the level of Reverend Mothers during this reporting period. Our protests are not answered. In response to a direct question from Sister Chinoa, the Lord Leto said, "Be thankful for what you have." This warning is duly noted here. We have transmitted a gracious letter of thankfulness to the Lord Leto. Goodness, how servile that is, isn't it? How obsequious. Now, here we get another disgusting aspect of the God Emperor and his fish speakers. An interesting term is weeding out is a euphemism for infanticide, isn't it? Leto and the fish speakers kill Bene Gesserit children to which they object. The Bene Gesserit must grovel and kowtow to Leto. I've written next to that, pathetic from their point of view, and I've also given it a skull. There we go. And the skull says Bene Gesserit births to which the fish speakers object. So infanticide is a thing that we can add to his list of crimes. And I suppose that lines up with Herod, doesn't it? Herod the Great, as he's known. And his wife, I love it, his wife Doris. Her adores your Doris. I always thought this is where it comes from, isn't it? Yes, indeed. Have I got the right? I have the right Herod, don't I? The killing of all the children, isn't it? There's quite a few Herods. Bear with me a second. New Testament massacre of the innocents is. Oh, just very quickly, I wanted to see. He had a particular. Yeah. Yeah. Herod died in Jericho after an unidentified but excruciatingly painful, putrefying illness, known to posterity as Herod's evil. Josephus states that the pain of his illness led Herod to attempt suicide by stabbing, and that the attempt was thwarted by his cousin. Some much later narratives and depictions, the attempt succeeds. For example, in the 12th century, Edwin Salter. Other medieval dramatizations, such as the Order Rachellus, follow Josephus's account. I don't know where I got my information from, but I generally thought he was poisoned by his wife. And then he died. It was like vomiting and diarrhea, quite nasty. Must look into that. But yeah, not a nice guy. The massacre of the innocents, or slaughter of the innocents, is the story recounted in the Nativity narrative of the Gospel of Matthew 2:16-18, in which Herod the Great, king of Judea, orders the execution of all male children who are 2 years old and under in the vicinity of Bethlehem. Modeled by the story of Pharaoh's attempt to kill the Israelite children in the book of Exodus, as told in an expanded version that was current in the 1st century. Most scholars find no support for the historicity of Matthew's account of the massacre of the innocents. But yes, this is what it is. It's as much as its involvement in, I suppose, he controls his breeding program. Doesn't seem that the Bene Gesserit have one going here, and that he's weeding out our births to which they object. That's killing them, isn't it? I don't know. Weeding out. They don't seem too happy about it, and only through, we're told, the tightest controls that they're able to actually maintain the level of Reverend Mothers during this reporting period. It's a strong suggestion that he's killing girls, isn't it? Weeding out. But I've taken that for mass infanticide. And I wonder if you agree, folks. Economics is up next. Is the law of the household, by the way. Probably most heavily based on melange. The chapter house continues to maintain its solvency, but the measures of conservation cannot be eased. In fact, as a precaution, certain new measures will be instituted in the next reporting period. These include a reduction in the ritual uses of melange, and an increase in the rates charged for, I'll read that again, and an increase in the rates charged for our usual services. We expect to double the fees for the schooling of Great House females across the next 4 reporting periods. You are hereby charged to begin preparing your arguments in defense of this action. So the Lord Leto has denied our petition for an increase in our melange allotment. No reason was given. As if he has to give one. He's the emperor. Our relationship with the Combine Honnet Ober Advancer Mercantilis remains on a sound footing. Ch11 has accomplished in the preceding period a regional cartel in Star Jewels, a project whereby we gained a substantial return through our advisory and bargaining functions. The ongoing profits from this arrangement should more than offset our losses on Gidi Prime. The Gidi Prime investment has been written off. This is to do with the hoard of spice that was found there, that's mentioned earlier, pardon me, which has been seized by the God Emperor. It's a write-off. So we get a wee bit of a sense of the economics of trade within Ch11, the Combine Honnet Ober Advancer Mercantilis. Cooperative, if you like, for honesty and the over the advancement of trade. That's kind of what it means. A couple of different languages in there, aren't there? We've looked at it a long time ago. The Gidi Prime investment has been written off. So I've made a couple of wee scribbles here. Reporting period, what is that? And I think, from what I can guess, that what a reporting period is that it lines up with the decennial peregrination, or the decennial festival even. So I was wondering, is a reporting period every 10 years? Bene Gesserit make money from educating great house females, advice and bargaining. I've put truth saying and diplomacy there. That they've lost the Milan stockpile to Leto II. Profits from Ch11 and the Star Jewels offset their losses on Gidi Prime, which they've written off, doubling their prices for education. Now, great houses. I find this a bit confusing, and I'll explain why. 31 great houses suffered economic disaster in this reporting period. Only 6 managed to maintain house minor status. See attached list. This continues the general trend noted over the past 1,000 years, where the once great houses melt gradually into the background. It is to be noted that the 6 who averted total disaster were all heavy investors in Ch11, and that 5 of these 6 were deeply involved in the Star Jewel project. The lone exception held a diversified portfolio, including a substantial investment in antique whale fur from Caladan. Our Ponji rice reserves were increased almost twofold in this period at the expense of our whale fur holdings. Oops. The reason for this decision will be reviewed in the next period. In other words, they messed up, didn't they? What I'm not too sure about, we've got 31 great houses that suffer economic disaster, and then we're mentioned only 6 managed to maintain house minor status. And what I wasn't too sure about was, were these 6 that ended up being minor house, were they part of that 31? Or is this a completely separate statement? 31 great houses went economic disaster. 6 managed to maintain house minor status. So is that 6 different houses, or is that 6 houses that went from great houses to minor houses? I'm not too sure. 5, 6 of them make their money on Star Jewel investments, and that's possibly with the advice of the Bene Gesserit. They've profited from it. 1 house miner has a diverse portfolio and invested in whale fur on Caladan. And we get the sense that the Bene Gesserit here, who've increased their Ponji, their food reserves, have done so at the expense of their whale fur holdings. That might have been an economic mistake. Next is an interesting one: family life. As has been observed by our investigators over the preceding 2,000 years, the homogenization of family life continues unabated. The exceptions are those you would expect: the guild, the fish speakers, the royal courtiers, excuse me, pardon me, the shape-changing face dancers of the Hylaxu, who are still mules, despite all efforts to change that condition. Pardon me. Sorry, dry throat, folks, there. Should have took my fluids earlier. I'll read that again. The exceptions are those you would expect: the guild, the fish speakers, the royal courtiers, the shape-changing face dancers of the Hylaxu, who are still mules, despite all efforts to change that condition, and our own situation, of course. That's the Bene Gesserit. I've made a wee note here: whose efforts in relation to changing the Hylaxu mules. I'm assuming, pardon me, that's the Hylaxu efforts, but I'm wondering if the Bene Gesserit involved. I don't think so here, actually, because of something we'll find out. Oh. There's Aunt Treniker saying space whaling. I always think of the whale from the Hitchhiker's Guide. Oh, what's this? What's this big thing coming up? I mean, it's so big and round. I'll have to find a nice name for it. Oh, I'll call it Ground. I love that whale. Yes, indeed, space whaling. Space rice as well. It is to be noted that familial conditions grow more and more similar no matter the planet of residence, a circumstance which cannot be attributed to accident, so it's deliberate. We are seeing here the emergence of a portion of the Lord Leto's grand design. Even the poorest families are well fed, yes, but the circumstances of daily life grow increasingly static. We remind you of a statement from the Lord Leto, which was reported here almost 8 generations ago. I roll with the generations, 20 years, so that's 160 years ago. And here it is. This is Leto. I am the only spectacle remaining in the empire. I've written next that doubtful, egomaniac. I would say that there's all sorts of things that are spectacular in his universe, in his empire. Just within, stars, planets, galaxies, all of that kind of stuff, nebula, universe, life, the universe, and everything, pretty much. I think it can be pretty spectacular. But we seem to have, as somebody was putting it, I think the idea that, a chilled out, sedentary kind of, boring kind of life, if you like. Boring's not that bad, if you know what I mean. And we all need things to do, but having a house and garden isn't so bad as having the shit, blown up at you, being killed in battle and adventure, all of this kind of thing. I always like to point out that an adventure is a venture that's gone badly wrong. But otherwise we really don't get too much. Here we have a wee bit more, haven't we? Pardon me. On family life. But why that I'm the only spectacle? Daily life grows increasingly static. People don't move about too much. That's fair enough. Bilbo Baggins wouldn't be too bothered by that, I think. Reverend Mother Si. Hang on a second. I wrote her name down wrong here. Where are we? Over the page. Sorry, bear with me a second. Siaxa, I have indeed. No, I noticed that one. Naughty boy, Russell. There we go. Has proposed. Reverend Mother Siaxa has proposed a theoretical explanation for this trend, a theory which many of us are beginning to share. RM Siaxa, done it again. I don't know. Bear with me. Siaxa, yes. I keep calling her Siaska for some reason. Siaxa attributes to Lord Leto a motive based on the concept of hydraulic despotism. As you know, hydraulic despotism is possible only when a substance or condition upon which life depends can be controlled by a relatively small and centralized force. The concept of hydraulic despotism originated with the flow of irrigation water, increased local human population to a demand level of absolute dependence. When the water was shut off, people died in large numbers. Let me just check I've written that down correctly there. It doesn't sound like it. Where are we? Oh no, we're over here. Let's see, 43. No, 40. Bear with me a second. It is possible only when a substance or condition upon which life is which life in general. Where are we? Sorry, bear with me a wee second. Or condition upon which. Yeah, I've missed out a bit here. Bear with me a second. Life depends. I've missed out the word in general. Bear with me a wee second. Russell, that's my mistake. Right, let's see. Hydraulic despotism, as you know, hydraulic despotism is possible only when a substance or condition upon which life in general depends can be controlled by a relatively small and centralized force. Sorry, I lost my page there again. Hang on. Nope, I haven't. Sorry, bear with me a wee second, folks. That just got me a bit confused there. There we go. That's where I'm at. The concept, let's see, just I check that I've written this right. The concept of hydraulic despotism originated with the flow of irrigation water. No, it's when. Sorry, that's me again. That's why it's not making sense. Bear with me, folks. Bear with me, folks. Sorry. When the flow of irrigation water increased local human populations, God, I've made a right mess of this, to a demand level of absolute dependence. Right. When the water was shut off, people died in large numbers. There we go. I have it fixed. I'll just read that again. Sorry about that. Reverend Mother Si has proposed a theoretical explanation for this trend, a theory which many of us are beginning to share. Reverend Mother Si attributes to Lord Leto a motive based on the concept of hydraulic despotism. Sorry, I'll come back over here. As you know, hydraulic despotism is possible only when a substance or condition upon which life in general depends can be controlled by a relatively small and centralized force. The concept of hydraulic despotism originated when the flow of irrigation water increased local human populations to a demand level of absolute dependence. When the water was shut off, people died in large numbers. Pardon me, I've written here not necessarily. But essentially, the idea is that if you live upstream, someone you can cut the water off, it prevents somebody else, and it applies to a number of substances. It's also known as Oriental despotism. I'm not particularly sure why, but it seems that the word Oriental and Occidental are considered offensive these days by some sort of, I don't know, God knows why. So we have the melange allegory here for oil and potable water. And of course, homogenization, by the way, is in relation to family life, is making everything the same. And I've also written, see Trump with oil and water in Iran, Putin with gas, etc., and so on. So this phenomenon has been repeated many times in human history, not only with water and the products of arable land, but with hydrocarbon fuels such as petroleum and coal, which were controlled through pipelines and other distribution networks. At one time, when distribution of electricity was only through complicated mazes of lines strung across the landscape, even this energy resource fell into the role of hydraulic despotism substance. Oh, bear with me again, just hang on, did I read that right? Fell into the role of a hydraulic despotism substance. I didn't think. Right, there we go. He's left out natural gas there. I thought that was the big one whenever I was doing the PhD from Russia, controlling the gas through, is it Gazprom, etc. But yes, we're all feeling the stranglehold. I don't know about you guys, but we're certainly feeling the stranglehold of the oil problem at the minute. In fact, the cost of everything's going up here, and we're running out of petrol. Thanks, Big D. Let's have a look. Carl August Wittevogel, hydraulic despotism, says at Chanakar. Bureaucracy allegedly emerges over a feudal aristocracy to manage the waterworks. Chanakar says Oriental despotism because of China, where Wittevogel claimed the bureaucracy exceeded the aristocracy in strength. Oh, thank you very much. Questionable. Coal and electricity didn't empower the bureaucracies of the relevant countries nearly as much as projected. I agree. It's an interesting concept, isn't it? To choke off a life, an essential. At the same time, for example, if we lose oil here, for example, and petrol, there are alternatives. It depends on how much dependency you have on it, but irrigation, it is an interesting thing. You could even find some stories on irrigation and mythology. But generally, whenever you get ancient cities, for example, where their populations reach a certain point, that's as Frank would put it here. This is what I was thinking about. It's probably why I've made a few mistakes in this one. The flow of irrigation water increased local populations to a demand level of absolute dependence. When the water was shut off, people died in large numbers. That can be fair enough. Water's pretty lethal in the ancient world sometimes. But generally what you get with ancient cities and so on is that your population reaches a certain size, and what you get is a bunch of guys head off and find a colony somewhere else. And not a colony back then isn't the same as colonizing somebody. It's simply forming another society elsewhere, with which then you could trade with your home city, if you like. So particularly there's a couple of the labors of Hercules, I think, are to do with Heracles. Sorry, are to do with irrigation. Definitely, they're both the Rhenian hydras to do with irrigation. What's the other one? It's it's the one where he cheats, isn't it? 12 tasks. There's actually 13 labors of Heracles because he cheats. Well, one of them's considered a cheat. It's the Augean stables, isn't it? The fifth labor is to clean the stables of King Augeas. The assignment was intended to be both humiliating and impossible, since these divine livestock were immortal and had produced an enormous quantity of dung. The Augean stables had not been cleaned in over 30 years, and over 1,000 cattle lived there. However, Heracles succeeded by rerouting the rivers Alpheus and Peneus to wash out the filth. Before starting on the task, Heracles had asked Augeas for 1/10 of the cattle if he finished the task in one day, and Augeas agreed. But afterwards, Augeas refused to honour the agreement on the grounds that Heracles had been ordered to carry out the task by Eurystheus anyway. Heracles claimed his reward in court and was supported by Augeas' son Phyleus. Augeas banished them both before the court had ruled. Heracles returned, slew Augeas, and gave his kingdom to Phyleus. The success of this labour was ultimately discounted, as the rushing waters had done the work of cleaning the stables, and because Heracles was paid for doing the labour. Eurystheus determined that Heracles still had 7 labours to perform, and I think the extra one was to get he had to go get one of the apples of the Hesperides. I think golden apples of the Hesperides, I think, is the extra one. Karl August of Wittfogel, hydraulic despotism. Yeah, questionable coal and electricity don't empower the bureaucracies of the relevant countries nearly as much as projected. It's an idea, isn't it? And you can't see how it can work, cutting off power. It depends on your timing of it and all that as well. But certainly cutting off water irrigation, diverting a river, to actually dam it up and stop people from using it. You hear of it in modern day times. I think I saw some sort of thing on YouTube that some rich guy in America who just diverted a river to kind of fill up his garden, his pond, his pool, and it was water that was essential for crops. And not that it's despotism, but that was just being a callous bastard, basically. I think, thinking he could do what he wanted, It's interesting thing about the religious dimension, says Tronica, with irrigation. Egypt is a good example. Well, I mean, it's a fundamentally important thing to a lot of cultures in the ancient world. I don't know too much about ancient Egypt, Tronica, but certainly countries that have been irrigating. What I do know is that countries that have been irrigating, that are desert cultures, for thousands and thousands of years, ancient cultures, are starting to have a bit of a problem with that, I think. The ruler is the provider of the resources with an educated bureaucracy to deliver the infrastructure, and it binds the people to the ruler more than the minor nobility. Very good. Oh, we've got a bit more on this, haven't we? Reverend Mother Si. I have done this throughout. I've written her name wrong continuously after doing the work on the name. Proposes that the Lord Leto is building the empire toward an even greater dependence on melange. Oh, sorry. There we go. It is worth noting that the aging process can be called a disease, for which melange is the specific treatment, although not a cure. I've done it. Reverend Mother Si. I'm going to have to change her name every instant. I've written it wrong. Reverend Mother Si proposes that the Lord Leto may even go so far as introducing a new disease, which can only be suppressed by melange. Pardon me. Although this may appear far-fetched, it should not be discarded out of hand. Stranger things have happened, and we should not overlook the role of syphilis in early human history. Okay. So, is it far-fetched? It might appear far-fetched, but it shouldn't be ruled out. Stranger things have happened within Leto's universe, and who's to say what he's got up to? What you're talking about here is biological warfare, isn't it? We're going to create a disease for which melange is the cure. You'd imagine that with so little melange and people not really needing it. Oh, I've got a bunch of points to make here, by the way. That's another, monstrous thing. Leto, I've got so far, Leto's a mass murderer and infanticide, commits mass infanticide. He's a liar, he's a manipulator, and he may use biological warfare on the Empire. He's a bit of a monster, isn't he? I've written here, there isn't, now, what we've got here is that the aging process can be called a disease for which melange is the specific treatment. I've written here, there is another treatment. And it's simple as this: the Bene Gesserit can control aging. See Children of Dune. Isn't it? This is the skill that Alia has picked up, isn't it? She's not aging, and it's a Bene Gesserit technique that they forbid. Interestingly enough, and the reason why, I think we talked about it a long time ago, folks. It was the reason why the Bene Gesserit forbid it was they reckoned that if people found out, they'd be really they'd lynch them basically. And I think at the time we kind of discussed that, maybe they wouldn't actually. Could you teach us how to stay young? As opposed to the revelation that the Bene Gesserit can control people with voice. I'd probably think that would get them killed quicker by the general population than the ability to stay young. I don't know, but it's a thing with Jessica and Irulan and Alia, isn't it? And Children of Dune. So there is a means of controlling aging that the Bene Gesserit know, and it's interesting that it's not mentioned here. The role of syphilis. Okay, here we go. This is going to be fun. Syphilis, infection caused by the bacterium Treponema pallidum subspecies pallidum, usually spread by sexual intercourse. Syphilis is called the Great Imitator. It was and can be, I suppose, modern day it can be treated by antibiotics. It was called the Great Imitator by Sir William Osler. His dates are 1849 to 1919. He's one of the founding professors, or what they call the Big Four, of Johns Hopkins Hospital, which was established in 1889 in Baltimore, Maryland. He's also known as quite interesting. He's also known as the father of modern medicine. I believe it's not in my notes, but I was reading about him there. I believe he's the person that created residencies for doctors. Where we got syphilis first occurred anyway. So the role of syphilis in early human history, I'm kind of wondering, what does that mean? How early? What are we talking about? I've got some dates and stuff here for you on syphilis. Syphilis first occurred in Europe, 1494 to 1495, first record of it anyway, in Naples during a French invasion, which led it to be called the French disease. Up until 1530, when syphilis was first used by the Italian poet and physician, I like that, poet and physician, Girolamo Fracastoro. His dates are 1476 or 1478 to the 6th of August 1553. I've written here, see Wiki. The term syphilis here derived from his 1530 epic poem in 3 books called Syphilis Sive Morbus Gallicus, or Syphilis or the French disease. Now, this is actually a link to the Atreides and so on, isn't it? You might find this interesting. It's about a shepherd boy called Syphilis who tended the flocks of King Alcinous, who anybody who's read your Argonautica or the Odyssey will know this character. Syphilis basically insulted Saul Pater, father's son. The son as a father, if you like, but like Peter. Here's the other one, this Peter as well. Probably a god a bit like Apollo, I'd imagine. And he was punished by being inflicted with a horrible disease. Now, syphilis, the character, is possibly derived from Syphilis, who's a son of Niobe, who we've talked about before, in Ovid's Metamorphoses. The term comes possibly from the word sus, which is swine, and philos, which is lover. In other words, a lover of pigs, a lover of swine. Now, it's related to Mount Sypolis, which is modern-day Mount Spell in Turkey. And again, we've talked about this a long time ago, which is associated with Niobe all tears. If you look it up on Wikipedia, you can see the outcropping of rock that's meant to be her. The water, I think, that used to flow from, I don't know if it still does, was meant to be her tears. So related to Mount Sypolis, which is Mount Spell in Turkey, associated with Niobe all tears, as I call her. Sypolis is associated also with the city of Tantalus, so it's the other old name for it. And he's the patriarch of the Pelopid line. So the city of Tantalus, that was Tantalis, was also known as Sypolis. And Tantalus, of course, we know the Pelopids are named after Pelops, but Pelops is the son of Tantalus, and he tried to cook his son and feed him to the gods, isn't it, with Demeter munching on his shoulder. And so the gods bring Pelops back to life, and that's why he's considered the father of the Pelopid line, and the Peloponnese is named after him. So this is the Pelopids again, where we get Sypolis, and Sypolis is indeed one of Niobe's male children, who are called the Niobids, by the way. Depending on what version you read, the one I knew was 14 of them, but I've discovered today, depending on which version you read, there's either 12, 14, 24, or 18 of them, depending on which source you read. But I've just written down here, Sypolis is indeed one of Niobe's male children. Now, specifically, just to, if you want to run the problem, syphilis has actually been found. It's much older than that, obviously. It's down to archaeology and paleopathology, and so paleopathology. Sorry. So it has been found in the bodies of, I've found this here, of 2 adolescent children from the Greek colony of Metaponto, which is in South Italy. Dental evidence shows congenital syphilis there. Paleopathology confirms, and archaeological dates these bodies to between 580 and 250 BC. So as far as I know, that's the earliest finding of syphilis within human bodies. 2 adolescents from the Greek colony of Metaponto. I've also written here, see Dracula and Bram Stoker, who died of syphilis. Guy de Maupassant. Here we got Cesare Borgia, Nietzsche, Hitler, Al Capone, Howard Hughes, Idi Amin, etc., etc. The list goes on of people with syphilis. So it's an interesting thing. Goodness, anyway, that's what I got on syphilis for you. But it was interesting to find a connection to the Atreides, isn't it? And we'd had a good old natter about the Pelopids before. Goodness, there's a bunch of comments. Let me catch up with them, folks. I love doing this kind of thing. Just wonder where this will take us. Awful lot on syphilis, by the way, on Wikipedia. I just tried to keep it to what we needed. You know, you can get lost in some topics. Cynthia saying, what does homogenization of family life refer to? Nuclear family, number of children, or type of birth are suggested by Chanukya's sameness due to bureaucratic dependency. Well, I kind of got the sense that what does a family look like on Arrakis here? In terms of how people are, you know, we're going to see some families later on, aren't we? But we've got fish speakers as and possibly their consorts. Again, no, we're not using the term husband, are we? Husband. We haven't got the husband and wife thing. going. Is there's a nuclear family? Is it, I don't know, is it 2.2 children? We've got eugenics being practiced here by the God Emperor and his fish speakers. And I imagine that if they're practicing it on, with the Bene Gesserit at Chapter House and their different worlds, why not here? So, do you know who your father is? Do you know who your mother is in such a society? That's kind of, and I got the sense that whatever it is, the way it is on Arrakis, that's the way it's spreading around the rest of the universe. But it seemed to be a kind of, I don't know, certainly a change from typical family life. It's been going on for a long time. It continues unabated. For 2,000 years, we're told here. Is to be noted that familial conditions grow more and more similar no matter the planet of residence, a circumstance which cannot be attributed to accident. So part of the plan. Portion of Lord Leto's grand design. Poorest families are well fed, yes, but the circumstances of daily life grow increasingly static. I am the only spectacle remaining in the empire. Possibly, as much as I said that's egomania, is that to make sure that no other spectacles arise as well? No more little Kwisatz Satellites, that kind of thing, potentially. Let's see, Reverend Mother Si's theoretical explanation for the trend is it's to do with hydraulic despotism, that he's heading towards Reverend hydraulic despotism, control, and possibly making it easy to cut off. I don't know, to harm the family. The family unit, by the way, is the ultimate family, the ultimate unit that's directly opposed to the political unit, if you like, of government. It's the government kind of, and families. It's families come together, etc. This kind of thing. Let me see, but yeah, it's a good point. I don't know, is the honest. Sameness due to bureaucratic requirements, dependency, to create people who are servile, happy in their situation, content with their boredom, if you like. What was it you said about the entourage earlier when they stopped? And regardless if you're rich or poor, at least you're well fed, at this point. Where are we? Bear with me a wee second. Sorry for the dead air, folks. Well-trained passivity. That's the term. Can we assume that that's going on within the universe, if you like, within all the different planets? That's part of it. It's a hard thing to get a take on, to be honest with you. Let me just catch up with the rest of the comments. Chanaka says the Dune Encyclopedia makes clear that the Imperium's understanding of history is pretty badly distorted. For example, the thing that if there's a dominant empire, its capital was the capital of the whole earth. Thus, it assumed Rome was the world capital until it was supplanted, and that London was the capital until Washington replaced it in 1945. And Carlos is saying you should check out the Tuskegee experiment, where blacks in Mississippi with syphilis were promised treatment, but instead they were monitored for years to track the effects of the disease. Tragic. I've never heard of that. That's awful. Goodness gracious, is that post-penicillin? So there's all sorts of mad stuff, isn't there, in the world? Tuskegee syphilis study. I'm going to bookmark that. That's going to be relevant, isn't it? What does Frank know about this? Most likely. So it's the comment on the role of syphilis in history, early history. Tuskagee's study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male, informally referred to as the Tuskegee experiment or Tuskegee syphilis study, was a study conducted between 1932 and 1972. Wow, by the United States Public Health Service and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, on a group of nearly 400 African American men with syphilis, as well as a control group without. The purpose of the study was to observe the effects of the disease when untreated to the point of death and autopsy. Although there had been effective treatments to reduce the severity of the disease since 1920s, the use of penicillin for the treatment of syphilis was widespread as of 1945. The men were not informed of the nature of the study, proper treatment was withheld, and more than 100 died as a result. That's disgusting. Ethical implications. Oh, well, there's a good bit on that. Well, I would imagine there's a good bit on that. Ethical implications. That's completely unethical. It's monstrous. I'm going to have a read at that. It's possible that's got some relevance as well. Thank you very much, Carlos. I'm going to bookmark that and put it in my Golden Emperor of Dune. There we go. That's terrible. Tragic, I believe so. Says that trying to go. Carlos says yes, and when they were caught in the 70s, the doctor moved to Guatemala and continued the experiment with locals still funded by the US government. Oh, am I pronouncing it wrong? It's, what did I say? Tuskegee. Tuss isn't Tusk, Key isn't house. Gee isn't. Thank you very much. Excuse my ignorance, Trafficker. It's always good to know. I often wonder about some of these things. Thank you very much. Tuskegee. Hang on, do that again. Tuskegee. The Tuskegee. Is there something about Tuskegee Airmen? Is that a film or something? The name rings a bell. I'm very bad at American geography. What's Tuskegee Airmen? Oh, it's another. Is that another experiment? Tuskegee Airmen were pioneering African American military pilots and personnel who trained at the Tuskegee Institute and served in World War II. I've heard of that. Known for their red tail aircraft, they helped force the 1948 desegregation of the US military. Overcoming intense racism, they formed the 99th Pursuit Squadron 332nd Fighter Group, achieving a distinguished combat record with 268 enemy aircraft destroyed. Hang on a minute. So what did I see that? Is there a connection there with Frank Herbert? A book, possibly. I may be thinking of something I haven't read, but bear with me a wee quick second, folks. Possibly not the right thing I'm thinking of. No, I don't think I have. Something else, I think. No, I think I'm mixing that up with something else. It's the region, is it AL? Is that Alabama? AL. As I said, my American geography is shit. Apologies. I don't know too many places in America. It's Alabama. AL. I was wondering, was it Alabama or Albuquerque or something? It was Black World War II pilots. Thank you, Devil. Yeah. I've heard of it. I think there's a film of it, isn't there? Yes, you've got it right now. Thank you very much. The Sari experiment, says Devil 23376. Thank you very much. Check out Project MK Ultra. I've heard of that one. Yes, Alabama. Thank you, guys. Sorry, excuse my ignorance. My American knowledge is not good, but I'm always happy to learn. Thank you. Yeah, that's horrific. Hmm. When we're talking about the role of syphilis in early human history, this is from the point of view of this universe. Yeah, hang on, that's something to go down. Hang on with the actual syphilis notes, isn't it? Let's get that here as well. Let's put that in. I'm going to put C. Tuskegee. How do we spell that? After there we go. Kegee syphilis. Is that what? Yeah, Tuskegee experiment. Good God. You kind of wonder, people say they do things in the name of science. I'm a scientist myself. I wouldn't do shit like that. That's disgusting. Goodness gracious me, absolutely disgraceful. And that's what I was saying. I was actually thinking it was whenever you told me about it, I was thinking that must be pre penicillin or something. But up until the 70s, that's just nuts. When they were caught, but the U.S. funded by the U.S. government. Tuskegee. Yes, indeed. That's just disgusting. Why do people think they can do that sort of kind of stuff? Just madness. Thank you. I will look into that. There may be relevance just with to what we're talking about there with that. That's why I went delving. What can we find out about early syphilis in terms of humanity? What are we talking about there? Now, next up, we've got the Transport Guild. The three-mode transportation system, once peculiar to Arrakis, that is on foot, with heavy loads relegated to suspensor-borne pallets in the air. Oh, sorry, there's a comma there. I'll read that again. The three-mode transportation system, once peculiar to Arrakis, that is on foot, with heavy loads relegated to suspensor-borne pallets in the air via ornithopter or off-planet by guild transport, is coming to dominate more and more planets of the Empire. X is the primary exception. We attribute this in part to planetary devolution into sedentary and static lifestyles. Again, that's linking back to the family stuff there, isn't it? Pardon me. Excuse me. And partly it is the attempt to copy the pattern of Arrakis, a generalized aversion to the fact that the fish speakers promote this pattern to reduce their work in maintaining order. Let me just read that again. That doesn't sound quite right. The generalized aversion to things Ixian. Oh. Yeah, I've missed out a bit here. Sorry, folks, that's me. I'll read that again. The general aversion to things Ixian plays no small part in this trend. Oh, crap. Right. Bear with me a wee second, folks. Copy the pattern of Arrakis, the generalized aversion to things. Right. Oh dear, let's see if we can fit this in here. Pretty border there. Bear with me a wee second, folks, just to fix this. Generalized to things Ixian. Right. Plays no small part in this trend. Sorry, that's a wee bit I left out there. There's the bit where I was getting snoozy or I went for a nap. Trend full stop. There is also the fact. There is also. Right, that's me fixed. Now that needs to go into things. There. And there is also, and then this bit. Woohee goes there, right? Let me just get that colour in. Sorry, folks, that's a wee mistake I made. Pardon me. It's an important one, isn't it? That's the wrong colour. There we go. Right, I'll just read that again for you, folks. We attribute this in part to planetary devolution into sedentary and static lifestyles, and partly it is the attempt to copy the pattern of Arrakis. The generalized aversion to things Ixian plays no small part in this trend. There is also, oh, I don't know about that. One more word out. The fact, yeah, I'll just, there we go. There is also the fact that the fish speakers promote this pattern. There we go. Excuse me. Right. Foot, ornithopter, and guild transport. Now, let's see. Over the guilds part, for God's sake, bear with me again, sorry. Yeah, okay. Over the guild's part in this trend hangs the absolute dependence of the guild navigators upon melange. We are therefore keeping a close watch upon the joint effort of the guild, of guild and X. Oh, for goodness sake, bear with me, folks. Sorry. Yeah, it's not me. Of guild and X to develop a mechanical substitute for the navigator's predictive talents. Without melange or some other means of projecting a highliner's course, every translight guild voyage risks disaster. Although we are not very sanguine about this guild Ixian project, there is always the possibility, and we shall request on this as conditions warrant. Sorry, we shall report on this as conditions warrant. That was me. Yeah. So Guild and X have got a joint effort to create a mechanical substitute for the navigator's predictive talents. Mechanical. By the way, I've written up at the top of this C Antikythera mechanism. For anybody who doesn't know about the Antikythera mechanism, it's a computer. It's the world's first computer that we know of, and interestingly enough, if we do a wee bit of research into the classical world, there is another which has not been found. Found off the coast of Antikythera just over 100 years ago. It is a analog computer, and it's used for ship navigation. It's found on a wreck of a ship, I suppose. It contains the phases of the moon, etc., religious festivals over the within the Greek calendar, if you like. So things like the Olympic Games, Pan-Hellenic Games, stuff like that are on. It's a fascinating thing. Check it out. It is a mechanical analog computer used for navigation. Because it shows you the things like the phases of the moon, etc. So in the ancient world, if you're sailing ships, etc., this kind of thing, you're not really heading out deep into the sea. You're hugging the coast. This kind of thing. So if you're heading off, you kind of want good moonlight to be able to see what you're up to. This kind of thing. Sanguine in this sense, by the way. Although we are not very sanguine about the Guild Ixian project, that just means we're not very optimistic about it. The other meaning of that, of course, is blood red. Sanguine. So we're going to have a wee chat about computers, but within the previous Dune books, we've had how to restrict and control your population by having them move on foot. I thought it was interesting that we got the suspensor-borne pallets, heavy loads. That's this universe, if you like, this time. I'm not too sure how they would have been used in the time of the great sandworms, if you like, in times of Paul Muad'Dib, because the suspensor is part of the halt. The suspensor field is part of the Holtzman effect, the same thing that creates the shields, the same thing that drives the guild highliners. And I thought that might drive the worms nuts there. Cynthia said, no boats on the great seas of New Arrakis. No, apparently not. Yeah. None. Yeah, nobody's off sailing or anything like that. I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's a very limited group of options, isn't it? Oh, I'm getting growled at, folks. Hello, Holly Love. You all right, pet? Ooh, would you bear with me a wee second, folks? In fact, I'm just going to need to let my big love here out at the back door. We've a few more pages to go. I'll be right back if you just bear with me a wee second. I'll let the doggies out. I'll tell you what, I'll quickly nip to the loo as well. Excuse me for one moment. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Excuse me. Oh, yes, no boats on the great seas of the new Arrakis. Julian said this chapter is very epigraphic. Much of it's written reports and analysis. Interestingly enough, from an academic point of view, Julian, there's not a lot of the evidence being presented in here, is there? That they keep referring to. I'm wondering if that's got a lot to do with the abridgment. Excuse me. So that's the Transport Guild. People seem to be limited to either walking about, gaining a ride in an ornithopter, or using a guild transport. We kind of see that though as well with the God Emperor's little peregrinations, don't we? That everybody's dandering along with him. Sister Chinoa has to kind of trot alongside, and yeah, there's a lot of that within the. So it's imitation, isn't it? In a funny kind of way, mimesis within the Empire. Everybody wants to be like the royals, like the nobles, this kind of thing. If you always used to get this with royalty and stuff, that with trends that people follow. Some of them quite absurd if you look at the Sun Kings and stuff like that. So they say, still thinking of the opening epigraph, that people do not listen to their soul, but rather to their anger and rage. Is this their response to the static world? Leto's way of encouraging the scattering. It's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. My life's been a bit crazy and hectic for a long time, and I kind of like the quiet life. And I think ultimately most people do. Excuse me. But it's a good point, isn't it? If we're going to need something like the scattering, we're going to need all these people. How do you encourage? Again, there's a manipulation of society. It's part of a plan. What's the objective? Quite possibly, to create people who want to get the hell out of here and go do something, go have an adventure. It's kind of, it's, in many ways, it's kind of part of the hero's process, isn't it? Sometimes, the whole Luke Skywalker thing, for example, living on his farm, bored, wants to go off and kill people in the Empire. That's Luke's dream. I want to go off and fight and kill. That's not a good dream to have. Unless you're being badly oppressed by someone. But again, they didn't look particularly badly oppressed. Well, until they turned up and killed his family, I suppose. Sorry, just running with Star Wars there. Hang on, I'm going to mute and cough. Bear with me, wee second. Not too bad today. It's just my throat's the air's very dry in here with the heating on. Carl says that might explain why so many quit the series after God Emperor. Do you think? I don't know. I generally get the sense, Carlos, that people jump off this series all over the place. But yeah. The Bene Gesserit books, I always look at it as a big turn, if you like, that the story's pivoting through God Emperor. And we never got that 7th book, but if you know what I mean. But the suggestion is that it's a bit of a pedestrian book. I don't know. It's a slow-moving book, isn't it? We plod along. We're almost trotting along with the God Emperor in a funny way. But there is action and things do start to move in it. It would be a tricky thing to make into a movie, wouldn't it? Much better as a TV series. And I think it's interesting that Denis Villeneuve has. I don't know. It looks like his new film Dune Part 3 is going to be Dune Messiah, with possible elements of Children of Dune in it. But I think he's jumping ship long before he gets to God Emperor. I don't think God Emperor would be particularly cinematic. I think it would be a lot better as a TV show, Julian said, Cynthia, maybe it's Leto's wish for people to live by instincts. That's our drop off, isn't it? Really, isn't that all the way back to the end of Children of Dune? They will learn to live in their instincts. It's an interesting thing. I often wonder why people, if the way people talk about the Dune series, if you love it so much, or people go, I love Dune, but I hate Dune Messiah, or I love Dune and Dune Messiah, I hate Children. I heard somebody talking about how much they hated Children of Dune the other day. I think Children of Dune's great. I think Dune Messiah is a fantastic book. The first 3, great book. We talk about problems within the text, but the actual stories themselves, how they're written, the characters, all great. This one, I think, is no different. It's certainly a bit of a change, isn't it? But a change is as good as a rest, as they say, But Yeah, I don't know why people jump off, or if you finish God Emperor and you saw there's another Dune book there, oh, I don't think I'll read this. It's about the but why? Well, surely wouldn't you follow on just to find out what happened? So I'm always a bit baffled about the various reasons why people jump off the Dune series at different points. There's different reasons for different books. There's even people who don't even read all of Dune. The minute they hit Appendix 1, they go, story's finished, not realizing that they're reading a novel, and that's part of it's a strange thing. So they said, Julian, does Leto have enough humility to leave our instincts alone, or is he evolving those too? Yeah. Quite possibly. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Certainly, you get governments who, their job, run the country. That's your job. Keep the hospitals running, fix the roads. Keep power on, make sure there's clean water. That should be a government's job, but rather than shoving some kind of ideology or something down your throat, I don't know. There's an awful lot of silliness in the world's governments at the moment. I'm definitely starting to head towards the idea that I think every religious and political leader should have some kind of small bomb put in their heads and teach them to be better humanitarians. The minute you bring about deaths within your own population or someone else's, that boom, off it goes. So you would be the first to die. I think it would very much change the nature of politics, wouldn't it? Kind of a Snake Plissken type of thing. Jensen and Cynthia, it was my impression Leto was breeding engagement with spontaneity rather than a stagnating need for peace and planning. I think the Bene Gesserit learned this lesson in Heretics and Chapter House. Don't think, do it. Well, this is the bit where at the book, folks, where it's the God Emperor. I shall push on. I've written this is important. Let me just get the right. There we are. Right page over with the book. Now, other than some small increments of growth, we note little change in the bodily characteristics of the Lord Leto. A rumoured aversion to water has not been confirmed, although the use of water as a barrier against the original sandworms of Dune is well documented in our records, as is the water death by which Fremen killed a small worm to produce the spice essence employed in their orgies. I've got to write this down, actually. I thought I would have written this down. The thing I'm going to write down is, do the Bene Gesserit know the nature of the Fremen orgies? There we go. It's a very good question, because if they did, I think they might. I don't know. For those of you who don't remember, we're informed at a certain point that taking the spice essence, the Bene Gesserit, Fremen Reverend Mother would make the poison taken from the small worm, sort of neutralize it and pass it out, and then everybody would use it for the Tal of the Siege orgy, if you like. And what actually happens to the Fremen during this orgy is that they actually are taken over by a person in other memory, which is really weird if you think about it. And they don't like to talk about it, isn't that right? But I don't know if you remember that. It was one of the, okay, what's this? And if you actually run the problem, for example, a Fremen orgy theoretically could have theoretically, it's a bit like the Baron problem. How many Barons are there in other memory, in Children of Dune? Theoretically, everybody could have the same ancestor. So that the idea, just for fun, I suppose, that the idea of a Fremen orgy would be that you could potentially have up to 10,000 people in a siege, all of which have decided to take on the role of the same man. I don't know if they get any choice in it or not, but they could have the same ancestor. They could all be late kinds or something like that. It's a bizarre thing. But behave. Bear with me. I'll see you. Hope these two don't. You all right, love? What's up, Excuse me a wee second, folks. I think Noodles needs out now. Do you need out? She does. Bear with me. I'll be right back. I'll just open the door for you. Now you keep it down, you okay? Hopefully they'll come back on their own volition and not bark too much. It's a bit late for the neighbours. Now, yeah, and they're okay. Let's see. So yeah, really important, the aversion to water. Again, there's a big time difference here, but it is important. It's really important. They don't have it's a rumor and it's not been confirmed. There is considerable evidence for the belief that the Lord Leto has increased his surveillance of Ix, possibly because of the Guild Ixian project. Certainly, success in that project would reduce his hold upon the Empire. He continues to do business with Ix, ordering replacement parts for his royal cart. A new Gola, Duncan, Idaho. Sorry, I'll read that again. A new Gola, Duncan, Idaho, has been sent to the Lord Leto by the Tlilaxu. This makes it certain that the previous Gola is dead, although the manner of his death is not known. We call your attention to previous indications that the Lord Leto himself has killed some of his Golas. Yes, indeed. There is increasing evidence, again, these terms within this Welbeck abridgment, we're not told what necessarily it is, that the Lord Leto employs computers. That's why I thought we mentioned the Antikythera device there a moment ago. If he is, in fact, defying his own prohibitions and the prescriptions of the Butlerian Jihad, the possession of proof by us could increase our influence over him, possibly even to the extent of certain joint ventures which we have long contemplated. Sovereign control of our breeding program is still a primary concern. We will continue our investigation with, however, the following caveat. And here it is. As with every report preceding this one, we must address the Lord Leto's prescience. There is no doubt that his ability to predict future events, an oracular ability much more powerful than that of any ancestor, is still the mainstay of his political control. We do not defy it. Sorry, that's not right. Bear with me. Yeah, it is. We do not defy it, with a big exclamation mark. I actually thought, I wonder, is that for Leto's prescient benefit? There's a kind of flaw in this, that if he is so prescient and they think they can see anything, then why does he need surveillance? It is our belief that he knows every important action we take far in advance of the event. We guide ourselves, therefore, by the rule that we will not knowingly threaten either his person or such of his grand plan as we can discern. Our address to him will continue to be, tell us if we threaten you that we may desist. Sorry, I'm going to have to bring the doggies in. Bear with me a wee second. Sorry about that, folks. There are a handful or two. Where were we? Bene Gesserit, tell us if we threaten you that we may desist, and tell us of your grand plan that we may help. He has provided no new answers to either question during this period. Pardon me. So that's the update on him. He might be using computers, which would be in defying his own prohibitions and the prescriptions of the Butlerian Jihad. And if they can get proof of it, they're going to try and use it to get a bit of leverage on him. But he may already know this just by even thinking it or saying it. But we do not defy it. The question of Leto's prescience is, I suppose, how absolute is it? We get the sense that almost everybody here seems to think that he knows exactly what's going on all the time, and I don't think that's true. Oh, excuse me. Julian said, Cynthia, it was my impression Leto was breeding an engagement with spontaneity rather than stagnating need for peace and planning. I think the Bene Gesserit learned this lesson in Heretics and Chapter How Stuart. Don't think, do it. Pardon me. Don't eat, just hula. D. Viller says, why does the Butlerian Jihad seem to have such a long hold and hasn't been watered down, ignored? Possibly because of the religious aspect of it, and possibly because of the harm that people with thinking with such machines were able to do in the past. As much as things are constantly changing in the world, religions tend to do so very slowly, and they also tend to last a long time, unfortunately, don't they? It's a good point. I think this is part of the watering down of it, the fact that he's using computers. Would Sukpot point out that essentially the God Emperor, as much as he's a human worm, I suppose, a human worm symbiosis, if you like, a new kind of being, he's also got a computer element to him now. He's a cyborg as well. Pardon me. The one thing about it that doesn't make any sense to me is that the main prescription of the Butlerian Jihad, isn't it, that thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind. Computers aren't like the human mind at all. And I suppose there's stuff to do with the very simple mechanical nature of the Ixian stuff. But that's kind of why I wanted to mention the Antikythera mechanism tonight. And we've had a good natter about it before. And if anybody's not heard of it, check it out. It's the world's oldest computer, dated to 100, 200 BC, roughly. Probably built, I'd go with 200 BC, probably built by Archimedes, to be honest with you. Can't think of too many people with the skill set at that time to build the thing, It kind of lines up with the siege of Syracuse, the Romans, and the Romans wanting to capture Archimedes alive, very, very specifically wanting to capture him alive, But there is I think there's a reference by some Roman. I read this. I'm not even sure if it is correct, but I'm pretty sure there is a reference that there were two of these machines. Why buy one when you can buy two for twice the price, as the old saying goes, But it's why does the Butlerian Jihad seem to have had such a long hold at this point? Because probably Leto wants it to have that. We could have gotten rid of it by this point, couldn't we? And he certainly is using computers. And again, we think of the nature of computers in this era when Frank's writing. They're very different things today, aren't they? Sophia was saying, Julian agreed we'll sort these things out in books 5 and 6. If I can remember correctly regarding spontaneity, Leto wanted humans who would not be trapped by the future presence or the lure of the knowledge of the future. He's produced. What did we get to? Oh, I made a big note here, but just we were talking about the Melian dialogue from Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian War. It's to do with the siege of Melos in 416 BC. If anybody wants to read it, you'll find it in Book 5, chapters 84 to 16. 84 to 116. But check it out if you like on Wikipedia. I'll quickly write it down here for you. It's to do with the nature of political realism, I suppose, just how nasty people can be because they have the power to do so. It's not actually a proper representation. It's obviously it's a fictional version of it, I suppose, by Thucydides, one of our great Greek historians. Let me see, did I make a wee bookmark of that? List of syphilis cases, Ch11, Fracasta, history of syphilis, diabetes. Looks like I don't know. Let's just bring it up on the screen. Is the million? This is just I don't like these AI overviews. Pardon me. Melian dialogue in the history of the Peloponnesian War, Book 5, chapters 84 to 116. The contemporary Athenian historian Thucydides includes a dramatization of the negotiations between the Athenian emissaries and the rulers of Milos. Thucydides did not witness the negotiations, in fact, had been in exile at the time, so the dialogue paraphrases what he believed was discussed. But basically, the Athenians offer the Melians an ultimatum: surrender and pay tribute to Athens or be destroyed. The Athenians do not wish to waste time arguing over the morality of the situation, because in practice, might makes right, or in their own words, the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. Melians argue that they're a neutral city, not an enemy, etc., etc. Athenians counter that if they accept Milos' neutrality and independence, they would look weak. And it basically ends with the Athenians capturing the city and killing all the men, pretty much. Pretty nasty. It's pretty near the end of Athens as an empire. And shows you how far they'd fallen, actually, doesn't it? But have we look at that in terms of it's kind of a relevant thing today, isn't it? The Melian dialogue, just that kind of might is right kind of thing, So not too much more to go, folks. We're on to the Ixians. Other than the Guild Ix project, there is little of significance to report. Ix is sending a new ambassador to the court of the Lord Leto, one Hui Nori, a niece of the Malki, who was reputed to be such a boon companion of the God Emperor. The reason for the choice of replacement is not known, although there is a small body of evidence that this Hui Nori was bred for a specific purpose, possibly as the Ixian representative at the court. We have reason to believe that Malki was also genetically designed with that official context in mind. We will continue to investigate. Now, I've made a wee note here, genetically engineered for Malki and Hui. Genetic engineering is the Triaxis thing, isn't it? Oh, I'm getting teased up by a doggy here. Do you want every love? For goodness sake. Let's see, hopefully they won't make too much noise. We've got a wooden floor here. Go on, up to your bed. Go on, up you go. Up. Good girl. And you go. Go on, into your bunk. Go on, good girl. Good girl. Sorry about it, we've got the ladies in the doghouse tonight. That's it, Niddles, in you go. Niddles I had to wash earlier. It's been rolling in too much. Hopefully they'll not make too much noise, folks. Tend not to let them in here because we've got a wooden floor. You stay put. Oh, for God's sake. Oh, hey. I'll just show you what I've got here to deal with. That's my girls. All right, big silver thorn. There is indeed. So where were we? Sorry about that, folks. I've kind of genetic engineering would require computers, wouldn't it? Advanced computers. In this case, also Tilaxu 8. I was wondering, question mark. Now that's about it. Really, it's just about Hui and Malki. The suggestion that both are genetically engineered for a reason, and very much reminiscent of the creation of hate. To entice Paul Atreides. You trying to get up on the top bunk, Niddles? Now, I'll just run on through, folks. There's not much more to go. The next section is on the Museum Fremen. These degenerate relics of the once proud warriors continue to function as our major source of reliable information, about affairs on Arrakis. So they're Bene Gesserit spies. Yes, indeed. Let's see. They represent a major budget item for our next reporting period because their demands for payment are increasing and we dare not antagonize them. So we've seen this with the incident with Shanna trying to buy the knife, the Chris knife from them, and how much they've chunked up the price. It is interesting to note that although their lives bear little resemblance to that of their ancestors, their performance of Fremen rituals and their ability to ape Fremen ways remains flawless. We attribute this to fish speaker influence upon Fremen training. So mimesis there, I suppose, again. Pardon me. And again, being influenced by the fish speakers. Probably at Leto's behest. And degenerate's an interesting word there. Has a level of contempt, doesn't it? Next, we've got the Tleilaxu. We do not expect the new Golem of Duncan, Idaho to provide any surprises. The Tleilaxu continue to be much chastened by the Lord Leto's reaction to their one attempt at changing the cellular nature and the psyche of the original. Kind of wonder how long ago that was. A recent envoy from the Tleilaxu renewed their attempts to entice us into a joint venture, the avowed purpose being the production of a totally female society without the need for males. For all of the obvious reasons, including our distrust of everything Tleilaxu, we responded with our usual polite negative. No, thank you. Our embassy to the Lord Leto's decennial festival will make a full report of this to him. Respectfully submitted, the Reverend Mothers Si, Yitob, Mamulut, Eknakosk, and Akili. 5 Reverend Mothers. We've got to the end of our chapter. Now, a female-only society that produces only females is parthenogenic. We get parthenogenesis in some species. Sharks do it when there's no males about. Females will, but they'll only produce parthenogenesis. Only produces female children. Get the Parthenon, by the way. Parthenogenic is to do with the virgin. That's Athena, isn't it? She's virgin born. Oh, I'm hoping to get to Greece sometime soon. Parthenos, maiden or girl, as well as virgin or unmarried woman. But that's who it's referring to. Yeah, Pantheistic festivals. Kind of wondering a little bit about that. I must investigate a little bit more. Very quickly then, folks. And I'll wrap up and check your, just say goodnight after this. But just in terms of etymology with the Reverend Mothers, we've already done Siaxa. Yitob, I think, now, a bunch of these will come up and tell you there's no such word, but Yitob is probably, I think, from Yentob or Yentov. It'll be Yitov, which is a Jewish surname. It's a derivation of Yentel, which means little girl or young woman. Then we've got Mamelut. I think this comes from Mameluc or Mamluks, which we've had before within the Dune series. There's an Arabic term for one who is owned or a slave. They were non-Arab enslaved soldiers and freed slaves. They're made up of peoples that were not Arabic. In other words, the Turks, Caucasians, Mongols, Eastern Europeans, Southern Europeans, etc. Eknakosk. Bit of bother with this one, but Ekne is the name of a Norwegian village. Words that begin with Ek in Norwegian are to do with the word oak. And there's also a Berber word for Ekne, which is twin, but I think it's possibly the first. And then we have Kosk or Kiosk, which is Persian for pavilion, palace, or villa. So if we had to think of any particular meaning for this name, it's probably a toponym that means oak palace. And then last one we have is Akili, which is a Nepali and Hindi term which means alone, solitary, or single. From the Sanskrit kala, and essentially refers. There's a female version of this is a woman who is solitary. So there we go, folks. Goodness gracious. You all right, ladies? I'm getting it. You sticking your tongue out at me. I've got Bonnie and Noodles. Oh God, Bonnie is all. That was a terrible thing. Bonnie's dead. Holly and Noodles. Poor Bonnie. That was a weird one there, wasn't it? Oh, that's our wee Bonnie. So she was our other wee Jack Russell. Well, listen, folks, there we go. That was a fascinating chapter. Tons in it. Lots for you to discuss, no doubt. But I'm absolutely shattered, and I've got these doggies to get sorted here. The wife's in bed. So it's 1:04 here in the morning. Cynthia's saying thanks, Doc, and all. Julian's saying thanks, Doc. See you all next week. I'll be back same time next week, folks. Again, if you've got any wee questions or queries, whatever, we'll keep them for next time. But there's a lot to take in there, and it really has kind of updated us on the ever-changing nature of the different powerhouses, if you like, the power groups within the Dune universe. So it's nice to see what they're up to. So I'll just say good night. Listen, everyone, thank you very much. It's been fantastic tonight. It's been a great chapter. And as always, you've been a great help doing this. It's been mucho. So I'll say good night. Be excellent to each other. Look after yourselves. And remember, no matter where you go, there you are. And we'll see you next week, Thursday, 10 p.m. GMT +1. British summertime. Devil are saying thanks. Take care, all says Bojack. Julian, thanks, Doc. See you all next week. Thank you very much, folks. Take it easy. I'll see you real soon. Good night. Bye-bye. We change up. It ends up here then, doesn't it? Ba 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 ba.